The coffee mug shattered against the wall 2 inches from Ethan's head. "This is garbage," Adriana Blake said, her voice ice cold despite the violence of the gesture. "Do it again. And this time, pretend you actually care about your career." Ethan Cole stood frozen, brown liquid dripping down the pristine white wall of the corner office, his presentation deck still clutched in his trembling hands. 32 years old, exhausted from another sleepless night with his daughter, and he'd just been seconds away from getting fired, or killed, by the most terrifying woman in New York media. This was only his second week. What Ethan didn't know yet was that Adriana Blake would change everything, that her cruelty hid secrets, that her ice would melt in ways that would shake them both, that in exactly 1 year he'd be on his knees in front of her, but for completely different reasons. If you want to see how a single father survives the boss from hell and discovers what's really behind her walls, stay with me until the end. And drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. Now let me take you back to where it all started. 3 weeks earlier, Ethan had been desperate. Not the kind of desperate that makes you skip lunch to save money, though he'd done plenty of that. This was the kind that keeps you awake at 3 a.m., staring at overdue notices while your 6-year-old daughter sleeps in the next room, trusting you to hold her world together. The divorce had gutted him financially. Rebecca had wanted out, wanted freedom, wanted a life that didn't include the mess of parenting or the mundane reality of a struggling writer. She'd left for Los Angeles with her yoga instructor, a cliché so perfect it almost made Ethan laugh when he wasn't crying. The settlement had been brutal. She'd taken half of everything they'd built, which wasn't much, but included the small savings account that was supposed to be Lily's college fund. Now it was just him and Lily in a cramped 2-bedroom in Queens, surviving on freelance writing gigs that paid a fraction of what they needed. His portfolio was good, great even, but the magazine industry was dying, digital media paid pennies, and nobody wanted long-form journalism anymore. Then the email came from Madison Pierce, his former colleague from his brief stint at a marketing agency 5 years ago. "Ethan, heard you're available. We have an opening at Blake Media Group, senior creative strategist. Pays $120,000 plus benefits. I know it's not journalism, but it's stable. You'd be working directly under Adriana Blake. Fair warning, she's intense. But if you can handle it, this could change everything for you. Let me know fast." Ethan had Googled Adriana Blake immediately. The images showed a woman in her late 30s, severe beauty sharpened by expensive haircuts and tailored suits that probably cost more than his monthly rent. Dark hair always pulled back tight, eyes that looked through people rather than at them. In every photo from business conferences and industry events, she stood slightly apart from everyone else, arms crossed or hands clasped, expression unreadable. The articles painted her as a legend and a nightmare in equal measure. She'd built Blake Media Group from nothing after leaving a major advertising firm under mysterious circumstances. In 7 years, she'd turned it into one of the most influential boutique agencies in New York, representing luxury brands and high-profile clients who valued discretion and results over relationships. She was also famous for destroying employees. The Glassdoor reviews were apocalyptic, brilliant but brutal. You'll learn more in 6 months than 6 years anywhere else, if you survive. She once made an intern cry for using the wrong font. I saw her fire someone during a Christmas party. Madison's follow-up text had been blunt. I won't lie, she's a monster. But she's fair. Work hard, deliver quality, don't make excuses. You have a daughter, right? This job has health insurance, real health insurance. Think about it. Ethan had thought about it for approximately 30 seconds. He'd thought about Lily's last dentist visit that he'd put off for 3 months because he couldn't afford it. About the laptop that was dying and couldn't be replaced. About the constant gnawing fear that one emergency, one broken bone, one busted transmission would send them into a spiral they'd never escape. He'd sent his portfolio that night. The interview process had been strange. He'd never met Adriana in person. Instead, he'd gone through 3 rounds of interviews with her senior staff, a nervous HR director named Cynthia, a creative director named James who seemed competent but anxious, and Madison herself, who'd vouched for him. She's traveling, Madison had explained when Ethan asked why the CEO wasn't involved. London, then Tokyo. She trusts us to screen candidates. If you make it through us, you're in. She'll meet you on your first day. The offer had come via email, clinical, formal, no warmth whatsoever. He'd signed without negotiating. His first day had been a Monday in October. He'd dropped Lily off at school, ignoring her questions about why he was wearing a tie, and taken the subway into Manhattan with his stomach in knots. Blake Media Group occupied the top 3 floors of a building in Midtown. The office was exactly what he'd expected: glass, steel, minimalist furniture, everything white and black and gray. Expensive, intimidating, the kind of place where people spoke in low voices and walked with purpose. Cynthia from HR had met him in the lobby, all nervous smiles and quick instructions. Employee handbook, benefits enrollment, desk assignment, password setup. She'd walked him through the main floor, pointing out the kitchen, conference rooms, creative pods where junior staff clustered around screens. Miss Blake's office is on the top floor, Cynthia had said, gesturing toward a glass-walled elevator. You'll report directly to her. She's particular about communication. Email for non-urgent matters. Slack for quick questions. Never call her cell unless the building's on fire, literally on fire. When do I meet her? She's in this morning. She'll send for you when she's ready. That had been at 9 a.m. By 2 p.m., Ethan had reorganized his desk 3 times, introduced himself to the team he'd supposedly be leading, and worked through half the employee handbook out of sheer anxiety. His team, 4 younger creatives who seemed talented but shell-shocked, had been polite but distant when he'd tried to connect. Just wait, one of them, a graphic designer named Marcus, had muttered. You'll see. At 4:47 p.m., his computer had chimed. My office. Now. A.B. The elevator ride to the top floor had felt like ascending to an execution. When the doors opened, he'd stepped into a space that felt more like a luxury apartment than an office suite. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan. Modern art that probably cost more than a car. Silence so complete he could hear his own breathing. Adriana Blake's assistant, a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s named Patricia, had barely looked up. She's expecting you. Knock once, then enter. Don't sit unless invited. Ethan had knocked. Come in. The voice had been clear, controlled, with an accent he couldn't quite place. Money, maybe, or expensive schools. He'd opened the door. Adriana Blake had been standing at the window, back to him, phone pressed to her ear. She'd held up one finger without turning around. Wait. And continued her conversation in rapid French. Ethan's high school French was terrible, but he caught enough to know she was eviscerating someone about a failed campaign launch. She'd been smaller than he'd expected, maybe 5'6" in heels. The photographs hadn't lied about the severity. Dark hair in a tight bun, black suit that probably cost thousands, posture so perfect it looked painful. The conversation had ended abruptly. She'd switched to English without missing a beat. I don't care what the client wants. The client is wrong. Fix it, or I'll find someone who can. She'd hung up, set the phone on her desk with precise care, and finally turned to face him. Ethan had prepared himself for cold eyes, sharp features, the ice queen from the photos. He hadn't prepared for someone beautiful. It wasn't conventional beauty, nothing soft about it, but the intensity in her dark eyes, the fierce intelligence in every micro-expression, the way she held herself like a blade, it had hit him unexpectedly, knocked him off balance before she'd even spoken. Ethan Cole. Not a question. She'd gestured to a chair. Sit. He'd sat. She'd remained standing, circling to perch on the edge of her desk, studying him like a specimen. The silence had stretched. Ethan had forced himself not to fidget. Your portfolio is impressive, she'd said finally. The feature you wrote on immigrant communities in Queens showed real depth. The brand narrative you developed for that sustainable fashion startup was creative, if a bit idealistic. Thank you. I didn't ask for your gratitude. I'm establishing that you have talent. She'd paused. The question is whether you have discipline. I do. We'll see. She'd picked up a file from her desk. His file, he'd realized, with his resume and work samples. You're a single father. Daughter, 6 years old. Lily. The use of his daughter's name had sent a cold spike through him. Yes. That's not a liability here. I don't care about your personal life as long as it doesn't affect your work. But I need to know you can handle pressure. This job isn't 9 to 5. When we have a pitch, you stay until it's done. When a client calls at midnight, you answer. Can you do that? I can. Your ex-wife has primary custody? No, I do. She's in California. Something had flickered in Adriana's expression, too fast to read. Childcare arrangements? After school program until 6. My neighbor Mrs. Chen helps when I need to work late. I'll make it work. You'll have to. She'd set down the file. I'm giving you the Meridian Hotels account. They're launching a boutique property in Brooklyn, targeting wealthy millennials who think they're too cool for Manhattan. James started the campaign, but his concepts are stale. You have 1 week to develop a complete rebrand strategy. Positioning, messaging, visual identity, media plan. Present it to me next Monday. Ethan's mind had raced. A week for a full campaign strategy was aggressive even at agencies where he'd worked before. I'll need to see what James developed. No, start fresh. His work is garbage, which is why you're here. She'd stood, smoothing her jacket. I don't believe in easing people in. You're either capable or you're not. Prove which one you are. I will. One more thing. She'd walked back to the window, dismissing him with her posture. I've read your journalism. You write about real people, real struggles. You make readers care. That's good. But this isn't journalism. We're not here to tell the truth. We're here to make clients money by selling them stories they want to believe. If you can't separate those instincts, you'll fail here. Understood? It had felt like a punch. Understood. Patricia will send you the client brief. Don't disappoint me. He'd been halfway to the door when she'd spoken again. Mr. Cole? He'd turned back. She'd still been facing the window, silhouetted against the Manhattan skyline. Your daughter, what does she think you do? The question had been so unexpected that he'd answered honestly. She thinks I tell stories. She doesn't really understand the difference between writing articles and making ads. To her, it's all just stories. Adriana had nodded once, slowly. Smart girl. It is all just stories. We just get paid better. That had been his first real conversation with Adriana Blake. He'd worked 80 hours that week. The Meridian brief had been thin. Luxury boutique hotel, rooftop bar, authentic Brooklyn experience, target demographic, with more money than sense. James's previous concepts had been exactly as bad as Adriana suggested. Generic millennial pandering, Instagram bait aesthetics without substance. Ethan had dug deeper. He'd visited the property, talked to the developers, walked the neighborhood in Williamsburg at different times of day. He'd interviewed bartenders and baristas, watched who came and went from similar establishments, studied what actually made people feel like they'd discovered something special. The insight had come at 2 a.m. on Thursday, delirious from lack of sleep, after Lily had woken up with a nightmare and he'd spent an hour lying next to her bed, listening to her breathe. Rich people didn't want authentic. They wanted curated. They wanted to feel like they'd discovered something real without any of the actual discomfort of real. The hotel shouldn't pretend to be Brooklyn. It should be a luxury interpretation of Brooklyn, the way rich people imagined it. Rough edges made smooth, grittiness made glamorous. The Brooklyn you wish you'd found. He'd built everything from that concept. Visual identity that mixed industrial aesthetics with luxury touches, exposed brick and Edison bulbs but make it expensive. Programming that brought in local artists and musicians but vetted for the right vibe. A social media strategy that felt organic but was meticulously planned. By Sunday night, he'd had 60 slides, a complete brand book, and no idea if it was any good. Monday morning, he'd arrived at 8 a.m. to print presentation materials. His hands had shaken loading the paper. At 10 a.m., Patricia had summoned him. The conference room had felt like a cathedral, massive table, chairs that probably cost more than his couch, screens on every wall. Adriana had been sitting at the head of the table, perfectly still, coffee cup in front of her untouched. Show me. He'd presented for 40 minutes. Every slide he'd agonized over, every strategic choice, every creative execution. She'd said nothing, asked nothing, her face a mask. When he'd finished, the silence had been crushing. Then she'd stood, walked to the window, and stared out at the city for what felt like an hour, but was probably 90 seconds. The tagline is weak, she'd said finally. Change it to where Brooklyn meets you. Less clever, more inviting. The social strategy needs refinement. You're trying too hard to seem authentic, which defeats the purpose. But the core insight is solid. This could work. Relief had flooded through him. Thank you. I'm not finished. She'd turned to face him. The visual identity is inconsistent. Slides 12 through 15 contradict the guidelines you established in the brand book. The media plan is naive. You've allocated too much budget to influencer partnerships and not enough to own channels. And this pricing structure makes no sense. Did you even look at competitive sets? Each criticism had landed like a body blow. I did. Just what? Just didn't care enough to do it properly? Just assumed I wouldn't notice? This is a first draft dressed up as finished work, Mr. Cole. I expected better. His exhaustion had curdled into frustration. I had a week to develop a complete rebrand strategy while learning a new job and raising a 6-year-old alone. I did my best. Your best isn't good enough. Her voice had been arctic. Do you know how many talented people I could hire tomorrow who would kill for this opportunity? Who don't have excuses about deadlines or childcare or anything else? I gave you this account because Madison insisted you were worth the risk. Prove her right or get out. That's when something had broken in him. You know what? He'd stood, gathering his materials with sharp movements. I've dealt with demanding editors, impossible deadlines, sources who lied, stories that fell apart. I've had my work killed for political reasons, butchered by bad editing, and plagiarized by people who got credit I deserved. But I've never worked for someone who mistakes cruelty for standards. Adriana's eyes had widened fractionally, the first real reaction he'd seen from her. This presentation represents 80 hours of work. It's based on real research, real insights, and actual creative thinking. Is it perfect? No. Could it be better? Obviously. But instead of telling me what's working and how to improve what isn't, you're just tearing me down to prove you can. That's not leadership. That's just being a bully with a corner office. The silence that followed had been absolute. Adriana had walked toward him slowly, each step deliberate. When she was 3 feet away, she'd stopped. Are you finished? Yeah, I'm finished. Good. Her voice had been soft, dangerous. Because now I'm going to tell you something I rarely tell anyone. You're right. The core work is good. The insight about curated authenticity is exactly what this client needs. Your creative instincts are sound, which makes the sloppiness even more infuriating because you're capable of better and you didn't deliver it. She'd moved to the table, pulling his presentation deck toward her. I don't motivate people with praise. I motivate them by refusing to accept mediocrity. You want to know if your work is good? Fine, it's good. It's better than good. It's the best first draft I've seen in 2 years. But a first draft is all it is, and if you think good enough is good enough, you're in the wrong place. Ethan had stood there, pulse hammering, unsure what to say. You have until Friday, she'd continued, flipping through pages with brutal efficiency. Fix the inconsistencies. Rebuild the media plan based on actual data, not hunches. Tighten the pricing structure. And for the love of everything, find a better tagline. When you're done, this presentation will be excellent. And then I'll tell you it's excellent. Until then, stop fishing for validation and do the work. She'd looked up, meeting his eyes directly for the first time. I'm hard on you because you have potential. The people I ignore are the ones I've already written off. So take your choice, Mr. Cole. You can be offended and quit, or you can be challenged and grow. Which is it? He'd wanted to quit. Every fiber of his pride had screamed at him to walk out. But he'd thought of Lily, of health insurance, of stability. I'll have the revisions to you by Thursday. The corner of Adriana's mouth had moved, not quite a smile, but something adjacent to approval. Thursday is fine. Now get out of my conference room. That had been 3 weeks ago. Since then, Ethan had learned several things about Adriana Blake. She was always the first person in the office and the last to leave. She drank black coffee from the same cup, plain white ceramic, nothing fancy, and never ate lunch at her desk. She spoke 4 languages fluently and could shift between them mid-conversation without thinking. She remembered every detail of every project, every conversation, every promise made or broken. She was also utterly, devastatingly alone. He'd noticed it in small moments. The way she ate dinner in her office at 9 p.m., door closed, pretending to work while her food got cold. The way she never mentioned friends, family, a partner. The way she left every company social event after exactly 15 minutes, like she was fulfilling an obligation. She terrified everyone. Senior staff jumped when she entered a room. Junior employees avoided eye contact in the hallways. Even Patricia, who'd worked with her for 5 years, maintained careful professional distance. But she was brilliant. Watching her work was like watching a master chess player, 3 moves ahead of everyone else, seeing connections nobody else noticed, turning client disasters into opportunities with surgical precision. And she was still absolutely brutal to him. Every presentation got shredded, every strategy got challenged, every creative concept got pushed until it broke or evolved into something stronger. She questioned his assumptions, poked holes in his logic, forced him to defend every choice until he could defend it in his sleep. The other creatives had stopped being friendly after the first week. They'd seen too many people burn out under Adriana's attention. They assumed he'd be gone by month 2. But something strange was happening. He was getting better. The campaigns he developed were sharper, tighter, more strategic. His instincts for what would work versus what was just clever were improving. He was learning to anticipate objections, to build presentations that preemptively answered questions, to separate ego from execution. And occasionally, very occasionally, Adriana would nod at something he'd presented and say, "That's right, move forward with it." Those moments felt like winning the lottery. Then came the coffee mug incident. He'd been working on a campaign for a financial services client. Boring, corporate, the kind of work that made him miss journalism. The brief had been vague. Make investing seem accessible to younger professionals. His concept had been straightforward. Real people, real goals, real numbers. No stock photos of people high-fiving in conference rooms. No abstract visualizations of growth. Just authentic stories about what people wanted money for and how investing helped them get there. He thought it was good, honest, different from the usual financial industry nonsense. Adriana had listened to his pitch for exactly 3 minutes before standing up, picking up her coffee mug, and throwing it at the wall behind his head. The crash had been spectacular. Coffee everywhere, ceramic shards scattering across the floor. "This is garbage," she'd said, voice flat with contempt. "Do it again, and this time pretend you actually care about your career." Ethan had stood there, stunned, while she'd turned back to her computer as if nothing had happened. Patricia had appeared within seconds with cleaning supplies, utterly unfazed. "She didn't actually throw it at you," Patricia had murmured, kneeling to collect the broken pieces. "When she's aiming at people, she uses staplers." "That's supposed to make me feel better?" "Just trying to provide context, dear." After Patricia had left, Adriana had gestured for him to sit down again. "You want to tell real stories," she'd said, not looking away from her screen. "I know. I've read your work. But real stories don't sell luxury financial products to people who are already comfortable. They sell to people who are scared or insecure or desperate to prove something. This campaign makes investing sound like homework. Where's the aspiration? Where's the identity they're buying into? I thought authenticity is a marketing term we use to sell them curated experiences that feel real without any of the discomfort of actual reality. You know this. You proved it with Meridian. So why are you falling back on journalism instincts instead of doing the job I'm paying you for?" Ethan had taken a breath, forcing down his anger. "Because these clients are selling people a lie, telling them if they just invest right, they'll retire at 40 and travel the world. When the truth is, most of them will work until they're 70 and hope they don't get sick. I don't care about the truth." Her voice had been sharp enough to cut. "Neither do they. They care about feeling like they're making smart choices. Our job is to make that feeling irresistible. If you can't do that, you're useless to me." It had been the cruelest thing she'd said yet. And maybe because he was exhausted. Maybe because he'd had 3 hours of sleep dealing with Lily's stomach bug. Maybe because he was just tired of being torn apart. He'd snapped. "You know what your problem is?" Adriana had finally looked at him. "Enlighten me. You've built this entire company on the idea that nothing matters except results. That feelings don't matter, people don't matter, truth doesn't matter. Just winning, just money, just success. And you're brilliant at it, I'm not arguing that. But you're so busy making sure everyone knows how tough you are that you've forgotten how to actually connect with anything real." Her expression hadn't changed, but something in her posture had gone very still. "I've seen your apartment photos in that design magazine spread," Ethan had continued, past the point of caring. "It's gorgeous. It's also completely empty. No photos, no books, nothing personal. Just expensive furniture, arranged by someone who gets paid to make spaces look like humans live in them. That's what all your campaigns feel like, too. perfectly executed, completely hollow. And you can fire me for saying it, but you asked what my problem was with this pitch. That's it. I can't make something hollow feel meaningful when the person demanding it doesn't believe anything means anything. The silence after that had lasted forever. Then Adriana had stood, walked to the door, and opened it. Get out. Am I fired? I don't know yet. I'll let you know tomorrow. She'd paused. And for what it's worth, Mr. Cole, that apartment was staged for the photo shoot. I don't actually live there. He'd left without another word. That night, after putting Lily to bed, he'd updated his resume and started searching for new jobs. The relief had been surprising. The idea of not having to face Adriana's judgment every day felt like removing a weight from his chest. But there'd been something else too, something that bothered him. The look on her face when he'd mentioned the empty apartment. Not anger, something else. Hurt, maybe. Or recognition. The next morning, there'd been a package on his desk when he'd arrived. Inside, a new coffee mug, plain white ceramic, and a note in Adriana's precise handwriting. The campaign was terrible. Your assessment of my character was uncomfortably accurate. I expect both of us to do better. We'll review revised concepts Friday at 9 a.m. Don't be late. A B. He'd stared at that note for a full minute, trying to decode it. Then he'd gotten to work. Friday's presentation had been different. He'd kept the emotional core, real people, real goals, but wrapped it in aspiration. Not lies, exactly, just curation. The Brooklyn strategy applied to financial services. Give them the feeling of authentic choice while guiding them exactly where the client wanted. Adriana had watched his pitch without interruption. When he'd finished, she'd been quiet for a long moment. Better, she'd said finally. Not perfect, but better. The emotional hook in the opening is strong. The call to action needs work. But the core strategy is sound. She'd paused. Send it to the client for review. Really? Did I stutter? No, thank you. Stop thanking me for letting you do your job. But her tone had been different, less sharp, almost tired. He'd been gathering his materials when she'd spoken again. Mr. Cole, a question. He turned back. Your daughter, Lily, does she know what you sacrificed to take this job? The question had caught him completely off guard. I don't think of it as sacrifice. It's just what you do. You take care of your kid. And if it makes you miserable? If you hate coming here every day? He'd thought about it honestly. Sometimes I do hate it. Sometimes I go home and I'm so angry I can barely function. But then I think about Lily having health insurance and food on the table and a dad who's not constantly stressed about money, and I realize maybe being miserable 8 hours a day is worth it if it means she's okay. Adriana had nodded slowly. That's a very practical approach to parenting. What's the alternative? I don't know. I've never had to figure it out. She'd turned back to her computer, signaling dismissal. The client will have feedback Monday. Be ready to pivot. He'd left feeling confused. These glimpses of something underneath Adriana's armor were disorienting. It was easier when she was just a monster. The weekend had been good. He'd taken Lily to the park, made her favorite pasta, watched her practice reading with a pride so fierce it hurt. She'd asked him about work, and he told her he was helping people tell stories about hotels and banks and other boring grown-up things. Do you like it? She'd asked. I'm learning a lot. But do you like it? Smart kid. Too smart. I like being able to take care of you, he'd said. That makes the other parts worth it. She'd hugged him tight. I love you, Daddy. I love you too, sweetheart. More than anything. Monday had brought a crisis. The financial services client hated the campaign. Not just disliked, hated. They'd wanted traditional, safe, everything Ethan had deliberately moved away from. The meeting with Adriana had been tense. They want stock photos and generic messaging, James had reported, looking relieved to be delivering bad news to someone else for once. They think the emotional storytelling feels too risky. Adriana had listened without comment, then turned to Ethan. Your response? They're wrong. The research supports an emotional approach. I didn't ask about research. I asked your response. Ethan had taken a breath. We can give them what they want and produce a campaign that performs adequately. Or we can convince them they're wrong and produce something that actually cuts through the noise. Their choice. but I think we should fight for the better work." Adriana had studied him for a long moment. Then she'd turned to James. "Set up a call with the client for tomorrow. Ethan will present the research supporting the emotional approach. If they still want generic, we'll give them generic. But they're going to hear why they're making a mistake first." James had looked shocked. "You're letting him present directly to the client? You have a problem with that?" "No, I just—" "Then set up the call." She'd looked at Ethan. "You have until tomorrow to build a bulletproof argument. Don't embarrass me." The next day's call had been brutal. The client had been defensive, dismissive, convinced that younger investors wanted safety and familiarity. Ethan had presented research, case studies, competitive analysis, everything he could find to support the emotional approach. By the end, they'd agreed to test both concepts. It wasn't a win, but it wasn't a loss either. After the call, Adriana had called him to her office. "That was acceptable," she'd said. "The client is still skeptical, but you didn't fold when they pushed back. That matters." "Thank you. However," she'd pulled up something on her screen. "I've been reviewing your hours. You're consistently here until 8 or 9 p.m., then back at 7 a.m. When do you sleep?" "I manage." "That's not an answer. After Lily goes to bed, I work another few hours. I sleep when I can." "That's unsustainable." "It's what the job requires." Adriana had closed her laptop with a sharp click. "I'm not interested in burning you out in 6 months. Adjust your schedule. Be here by 8:30, not 7. Leave by 6:30 unless there's a genuine emergency. Your work quality is suffering from exhaustion." He'd stared at her. "Are you giving me permission to work less? I'm telling you that quality matters more than hours. A sharp mind for 8 hours is worth more than a tired one for 12. She'd paused. "Besides, you have a daughter. She should see you occasionally while she's still awake." The comment had been so unexpected, so oddly personal, that Ethan hadn't known how to respond. "I appreciate that." "Don't appreciate it, just do it." But again, that tone, something softer underneath the command. The pattern had continued over the following weeks. Adriana remained demanding, critical, impossible to please. But there were these moments, small cracks in the ice. She'd asked about Lily. Not often, not obviously, but in passing. "Your daughter's school presentation went well?" After Ethan had mentioned it in a morning meeting. "The stomach bug resolved?" After he'd been out for a day. She'd started sending him research articles late at night. No comment, no context, just links to behavioral psychology studies or marketing case studies that related to whatever project they were working on. She'd stopped throwing things. And once, late on a Thursday when most of the office had cleared out, he'd passed her office and seen her standing at the window, perfectly still, looking out at the city with an expression of such profound loneliness that it had stopped him in his tracks. He'd almost knocked, almost asked if she was okay. But then Patricia had appeared, reminding Adriana about a dinner she was already late for, and the moment had passed. Ethan had gone home that night, unable to shake the image. This woman who terrified everyone, who demanded perfection, who seemed to need nothing and no one, standing alone in an empty office, looking lost. It changed something in how he saw her. Not enough to make the job easy, not enough to make him stop resenting the criticism or dreading presentations, but enough to make him wonder what had happened to make someone so brilliant build walls so high that nobody could get close. Enough to make him curious about who Adriana Blake actually was when she wasn't being the impossible boss. He'd find out soon enough, because in 2 days, everything would change. The crisis hit on a Wednesday afternoon, 2 months into Ethan's tenure at Blake Media Group. He'd been in the middle of reviewing mock-ups for a cosmetics campaign when James had burst into the creative pod, face pale, tablet clutched in his hand like evidence at a crime scene. "Conference room. Now. Everyone." The entire senior team had assembled within minutes. Ethan, Marcus, 2 other creatives named Sarah and David, the media director Michelle, and James himself, who looked like he might throw up. Patricia had appeared at the door, expression grave. "Ms. Blake will be here in 2 minutes. She's currently on the phone with legal." That was never good. When Adriana entered, the temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. She moved to the head of the table with her usual precision, but Ethan noticed the tightness around her eyes, the way her jaw was set. "Vandermeer Luxury is pulling their account," she said without preamble. Effective immediately. They're citing breach of creative confidentiality. The silence was absolute. Vandermeer was their biggest client, 40% of the agency's annual revenue. High-end watches, jewelry, leather goods, old money, European prestige, the kind of brand that could make or break a boutique agency. What happened? Michelle asked, voice barely above a whisper. Adriana's eyes cut to James. You want to explain, or should I? James looked like he wanted to disappear into his chair. There was a leak. Someone sent preliminary campaign concepts to a journalist. They published an article this morning breaking down our entire strategy for Vandermeer's spring launch. Who leaked it? Sarah asked. We don't know yet, Adriana said, but it came from someone with access to the shared drive, which means someone in this room, or someone on your teams. The accusation hung heavy in the air. Ethan's mind raced. He'd worked on preliminary concepts for Vandermeer 3 weeks ago, before Adriana had scrapped the whole direction and started over. He'd saved everything to the shared drive per protocol. This journalist, he said carefully, do they have a history with anyone here? Adriana pulled up something on the screen at the front of the room. An article from a media industry blog, headlines screaming about luxury brands and tone-deaf marketing. The byline made Ethan's stomach sink. Rebecca Cole, his ex-wife. Actually, Adriana said, voice like ice, she has a history with you, Mr. Cole. Care to explain? Every eye in the room turned to him. That's my ex-wife, Ethan said, keeping his voice steady. But I didn't leak anything to her. I haven't spoken to her in 4 months, not since she called about changing Lily's Christmas visit schedule. Convenient timing, though, James said, and there was something ugly in his tone. New guy shows up, suddenly our biggest client gets burned. I didn't do this. Your ex-wife is a journalist who covers the media industry, Adriana said. You worked on Vandermeer concepts. The timeline fits. I know how it looks, but I didn't leak anything. I wouldn't what? Sabotage the company that's paying your bills? Wouldn't risk the job you desperately needed? Adriana's voice was cold, clinical. Or wouldn't help your ex-wife's career even though you have a child together and presumably want to maintain some working relationship. The reasoning was so logical, so perfectly constructed, that for a moment Ethan couldn't find a counter-argument. I didn't do it, he repeated. Check my email, my phone records, whatever you need. I haven't contacted Rebecca about anything work-related. We will. Adriana turned to Patricia. Get IT on this immediately. I want full access logs for the shared drive, email records, phone logs if we can get them. Everyone in this room and their direct reports. Patricia nodded and left. Until we resolve this, Adriana continued, everyone's access to sensitive client materials is restricted. James, you'll coordinate information flow. Nobody gets anything without explicit approval. What about current projects? Michelle asked. On hold until we know who we can trust. Adriana's gaze swept the room. If anyone knows anything about this leak, now is the time to speak up. Because when I find out who did this, and I will find out, the consequences will be severe enough to make you wish you'd come forward. Nobody spoke. Get back to work. Ethan, stay. The others filed out, James shooting Ethan a look that mixed suspicion with something almost like pity. When the door closed, Ethan turned to face Adriana. She was standing at the window, back to him, posture rigid. I didn't leak anything, he said again. I swear. Your word means nothing right now. Then what do you want me to say? She turned, and the look on her face stopped him cold. Not anger. Something worse. Disappointment, maybe, or the kind of tired resignation that came from being let down too many times. I want you to tell me if you're the kind of person who would destroy something because it was the easy play. Because if you are, I need to know now before you do more damage. I'm not. Everyone says that. Then they take the money or the favor or the revenge, and they justify it to themselves later. She moved closer. Do you know what it took to build this company? How many people I had to cut out of my life because they wanted to use my connections, my reputation, my work for their own benefit? I'm not using you. Aren't you? You needed a job. I gave you one. You needed flexibility for your daughter. I gave you that too. You needed someone to push you to be better than you thought you could be, and I've done that every single day. What have you given me except reasons to question my judgment? The words hit like physical blows. Ethan felt something crack open in his chest. Frustration, exhaustion, and the sick certainty that no matter what he said, she'd already decided he was guilty. "You want to know what I've given you?" His voice came out rough. "I've given you everything. I've worked myself half to death trying to meet your impossible standards. I've missed bedtime with my daughter more nights than I can count. I've taken every piece of criticism, every insult, every impossible deadline, and I've delivered. Not because I'm using you, but because, despite everything, I actually respect what you've built here. I respect you." Adriana's expression flickered, something vulnerable crossing her face before the mask slammed back down. "Respect doesn't matter if you betrayed me." "I didn't betray you, but you've already convicted me, haven't you? Because it's easier to believe I'm guilty than to consider that maybe someone else on your perfect team sold you out. My team has been with me for years. And how many of them actually like you?" The question came out harsher than he'd intended, but he was past caring. How many of them would take a bullet for you versus how many are just terrified of being fired? Because from where I'm standing, loyalty built on fear isn't loyalty at all. The silence that followed was dangerous. "Get out," Adriana said quietly. "Am I fired?" "I don't know yet. I'll tell you when I decide." She turned back to the window. "Until then, you're suspended pending investigation. Patricia will escort you out." "You're making a mistake." "That's my problem, not yours. Leave." Ethan left, jaw clenched so tight his teeth ached. Patricia was waiting outside, face carefully neutral. "I'll walk you to your desk," she said softly. "Collect your personal items only." The walk across the office floor felt like a perp walk. Everyone watched from their desks, conversations dying as he passed. Marcus wouldn't meet his eyes. Sarah looked almost sorry. He grabbed his laptop bag, a photo of Lily, the coffee mug Adriana had given him after the throwing incident. Everything else was just office supplies. "This way," Patricia said, leading him to the elevator. In the lobby, she handed him a manila envelope. "Your personal items from the desk drawers. Severance paperwork if it comes to that. Ms. Blake's assistant will contact you within 48 hours with next steps." "Patricia, I know, dear." She patted his arm. "I've worked for Adriana for 5 years. I've seen her trust the wrong people before. It's made her careful. Sometimes too careful. She thinks I'm guilty. She thinks everyone's guilty until proven innocent. It's how she survived." Patricia glanced back toward the elevators. "Give her time. The truth usually finds its way out." Ethan walked out of the building into cold November air, feeling like he'd been gutted. He picked Lily up from school early. Unable to face going home to an empty apartment, she chattered about her day, oblivious to his turmoil, and he held on to her hand tighter than necessary as they walked to the park. "Daddy, you're squishing my fingers." "Sorry, sweetheart." He loosened his grip. "Why aren't you at work?" "I had a problem. Something bad happened, and people think I did it even though I didn't." Lily looked up at him with those serious eyes that were too old for 6. "Like when Tommy said I pushed him at recess, but really he tripped?" "Yeah, like that." "Did you tell them you didn't do it?" "I did. They don't believe me." "That's not fair." "No, it's not." She was quiet for a moment, swinging on his arm. "Mrs. Chen says the truth always comes out. Like when milk goes bad, you can smell it even if the carton says it's still good." Despite everything, Ethan smiled. "Mrs. Chen is very wise." "So the truth will come out?" "I hope so, baby. I really hope so." That night, after Lily was asleep, he sat at his laptop staring at Rebecca's article. It was detailed, thorough, exactly the kind of expose she'd built her career on. The Vandermeer campaign strategy was laid out point by point: positioning, target demographic, creative direction, media strategy. Everything. He scrolled through his email, searching for any contact with Rebecca. Nothing since September, when she'd asked to switch weekends for Lily's visit. Before that, sporadic messages about logistics, all brief and businesslike. His phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello? Ethan Cole?" A woman's voice, professional. "Yes?" "This is Sandra Chen from Blake Media Group's IT department. I need to ask you some questions about your device usage and file access. Do you have a few minutes?" "Of course." The questions were thorough. When had he last accessed the Vandermeer files? Had he downloaded anything to external drives? Had he sent any work materials to personal email accounts? Had he discussed projects with anyone outside the company? He answered honestly, no, 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 and only in the vaguest terms with Mrs. Chen when she'd asked how work was going. And your relationship with Rebecca Cole? We're divorced. We share custody of our daughter. We barely speak except about logistics. When did you last have contact with her? September 23rd. Email about switching a weekend visit. No contact since then? None. Mr. Cole, I'm looking at your access logs. You opened the Vandermeer strategy document on October 15th at 11:47 p.m. Do you remember why? Ethan thought back. Mid-October, late night. I was doing competitive research for a different pitch. I wanted to review the strategy framework we'd used for Vandermeer to see if I could adapt the approach. Did you download or share that file? No, I just read through it on the shared drive. According to our logs, someone downloaded that file to an external USB drive on October 16th at 2:14 a.m. from your workstation. His blood ran cold. That's not possible. I left the office at midnight. I remember because I had to catch the last train. Can anyone verify that? The building security logs would show when I left, and my Metro card has a timestamp from the subway. I'll check those. But Mr. Cole, if someone else used your workstation after you left, that means either someone has your login credentials or you didn't lock your computer when you left. The realization hit him like a truck. He'd been so tired that night, rushing to catch the train. Had he locked his screen? He always did. It was automatic. But had he that specific night? I can't remember for certain if I locked it, he admitted. I was exhausted, running late. I might have just left. That's a serious security violation. I know. I'm sorry, but I didn't download anything. Someone else must have used my computer. I'll include that in my report. Is there anything else you want to tell me? Just that I didn't leak anything. I wouldn't do that. Noted. Thank you for your time, Mr. Cole. She hung up, leaving him staring at his phone in the dark apartment. If he'd left his computer unlocked, anyone could have accessed it. Anyone in the office that night. He tried to remember who'd still been there when he'd left. James had been in his office, door closed. Sarah had been at her desk. A few junior staff scattered around. But it could have been anyone. Someone could have come back. Someone could have been waiting for exactly this kind of opportunity. He didn't sleep that night. By morning, he'd drunk 4 cups of coffee and built a timeline of everything he could remember from that week. Who'd been working late, who'd asked about Vandermeer, who'd seemed stressed or distracted. At 9 a.m., his phone rang. Patricia. Mr. Cole, Miss Blake would like to see you at the office at 2 p.m. today. His heart hammered. Am I being fired? I don't know, dear. Just be there at 2. He dropped Lily at school, ignoring her questions about why he seemed worried, and spent the next 4 hours alternating between panic and resignation. At 1:45, he put on his best suit and headed to Manhattan. Patricia met him in the lobby. She's waiting in her office. And Mr. Cole? Whatever happens, keep your temper. It won't help. He nodded, too nervous to speak. Adriana's office looked the same as always, pristine, cold, intimidating. She was at her desk, reading something on her screen. She didn't look up when he entered. Sit. He sat. She continued reading for another 30 seconds. A power play, he realized, making him wait. Finally, she looked up. It finished their investigation. You didn't download those files. Relief flooded through him. I told you, but you did leave your workstation unlocked, which violated company security policy and enabled the breach. The relief curdled. I made a mistake. I was tired. I was rushing. Mistakes have consequences, Mr. Cole. Because of your carelessness, someone was able to steal confidential information and destroy a client relationship worth millions. Who downloaded the files? We don't know yet. The USB drive wasn't registered to anyone in the company. Whoever did this knew how to cover their tracks. She leaned back in her chair. But the fact remains that you created the vulnerability they exploited. So what happens now? You fire me for not locking my computer once? I should. It would send a clear message about security protocols. But? Her jaw tightened. But you were right about something you said yesterday. Loyalty built on fear isn't real loyalty. And firing you for an honest mistake while the actual thief goes free isn't justice, it's just convenient. Ethan stared at her, trying to process this. You're not fired, Adriana continued. You're on probation, 6 months during which any violation of protocol, any tardiness, any missed deadline, any security lapse will result in immediate termination, and you're being reassigned. Reassigned where? You'll be working directly with me on damage control and new business development. Vandermeer is gone, which means we need to replace that revenue immediately. You'll help me pitch new clients, rebuild our portfolio, and prove that Blake Media Group is still worth trusting. It sounded like punishment disguised as opportunity. Why would you want me working more closely with you if you don't trust me? Because I trust you more than I trust most people here, she said bluntly. You were careless, but you weren't malicious. And your instinct to defend yourself instead of throwing someone else under the bus tells me something about your character. You spent 2 days thinking I betrayed you. I spent 2 days investigating whether you betrayed me. There's a difference. She stood, moving to the window. I've been burned before, Mr. Cole, by people I trusted, people I considered friends. It's made me suspicious, sometimes overly so. It was the closest thing to an apology he'd ever heard from her. Who do you think leaked the files? He asked. I have suspicions, but suspicion isn't proof, and I won't destroy someone's career without evidence. She turned to face him. Whoever did this will make another mistake eventually. They always do. Until then, we rebuild. When do I start? Tomorrow, 8 a.m. We have a pitch meeting with a potential client at 10. Luxury athletic wear company, thinking about rebranding their flagship stores. I need you to develop preliminary concepts by morning. That's 12 hours. I'm aware. Consider it your probation starting early. But there was something different in her tone. Less cutting, more challenging, like she was testing him rather than punishing him. I'll have something ready. See that you do. She sat back down, already turning to her computer. And Mr. Cole, lock your workstation. Every time, no exceptions. Understood. He was halfway to the door when she spoke again. Your daughter, Lily, how did you explain the suspension to her? He turned back, surprised. I told her people thought I did something I didn't do, that sometimes the truth takes time to come out. What did she say? That it wasn't fair, and that the truth always comes out eventually. Something crossed Adriana's face, too quick to read, but it looked almost like pain. Smart girl, you should listen to her. That night, fueled by adrenaline and coffee and the desperate need to prove himself, Ethan built a pitch deck that he knew was good. Not just good, inspired. He'd researched the athletic wear company, found the gap in their market positioning, identified exactly how to make expensive workout clothes feel like identity instead of vanity. At 7:55 a.m., he walked into Adriana's office with printed materials and a USB drive backup. She looked up from her computer. You're early. I'm on probation. Early seems safer than on time. The corner of her mouth moved. Not quite a smile, but close. Show me what you have. He presented for 20 minutes. She interrupted twice with questions, both sharp and relevant. When he finished, she was quiet for a long moment. The core concept is solid. The execution needs refinement, but we can do that on the way to the meeting. This will work. It was the most straightforward praise she'd ever given him. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. If we land this client, you'll be leading the account, which means late nights, impossible deadlines, and the client will probably be difficult. Still interested? Yes. Good. Get in the car. We're leaving in 10 minutes. The pitch meeting was in a loft in Soho. Exposed brick, hardwood floors, the kind of space that screamed creative authenticity while costing a fortune. The client was a woman in her 40s named Jessica Warren, CEO and founder, who'd built her athletic wear company from a single yoga studio to a national brand. Adriana handled the introductions with effortless professionalism, then turned the floor over to Ethan. He pitched the strategy he'd developed, repositioning the stores not as retail spaces, but as community hubs where the brand's values came to life. Classes, events, local artist collaborations, all designed to make customers feel like they were joining something rather than just buying something. Jessica asked hard questions. Adriana supported his answers without taking over, adding details that strengthened his points, redirecting when conversations veered off track. By the end of the hour, Jessica was nodding. This is different from the other agencies we've talked to. They wanted to make us look bigger, more corporate. You want to make us feel local. Because that's your competitive advantage, Ethan said. Nike and Lululemon can outspend you on advertising, but they can't make their stores feel like they belong to the neighborhood. You can. Jessica looked at Adriana. He's good. He is, Adriana agreed simply. I'll need to think about this. Talk to my board, but I like the direction. Send me a detailed proposal by next week. You'll have it in 3 days, Adriana said. They shook hands and left. In the elevator down, Adriana turned to Ethan. Well done. We don't have the account yet. We will. She's already decided. She just needs to go through the motions with her board. Adriana pulled out her phone, typing something. When we get back to the office, start building the full proposal. I'll assign Sarah and Marcus to support you. Deadline is Friday at noon. That's 2 days. I know how calendars work, Mr. Cole. Can you do it or not? I can do it. Then stop complaining about the timeline. But there was something in her voice, almost like amusement, like she was enjoying pushing him and watching him push back. The next 2 days were brutal. Ethan worked with Sarah and Marcus to build out every detail of the proposal, store design concepts, programming calendars, staffing models, budget breakdowns. Adriana reviewed everything, her feedback sharp but constructive, pushing them to think bigger while staying grounded in reality. Late Thursday night, most of the office cleared out. Ethan was still at his desk, finalizing the financial projections, when Adriana appeared. You're still here. Almost done. Just need to double-check these numbers. She pulled up a chair next to him, the first time she'd ever sat at his desk. Show me. They worked through the spreadsheet together, Adriana catching errors he'd missed, suggesting adjustments that tightened the budget without cutting quality. Her proximity was distracting. He could smell her perfume, something subtle and expensive, notice details he'd never been close enough to see before, a small scar on her left hand, the way she chewed her bottom lip slightly when she was concentrating. This number doesn't track, she said, pointing to a line item. Where's that coming from? Installation costs for the community space build-outs. I got quotes from 3 contractors. Average them. Average is lazy. Use the middle quote. Averaging includes the outlier who's either overcharging or underestimating. He made the adjustment. Better? Better. She leaned back, studying the screen. You're getting faster at this. 2 months ago, this would have taken you twice as long. 2 months ago, you'd have made me redo it 3 times before accepting it. I would have. But you're making fewer mistakes worth redoing. It was such a casual admission of his progress that Ethan almost missed it. Then the meaning sank in. She'd noticed. She'd been tracking his improvement, even while seeming impossible to please. Can I ask you something? He said. You can ask. I may not answer. Why are you like this? The constant criticism, the impossible standards, making everyone afraid of you. You're brilliant. You could build loyalty without fear if you wanted to. Why don't you? Adriana was quiet for a long moment. He thought she might tell him to mind his own business and leave. Instead, she surprised him. Because loyalty without standards is worthless. People who like you will still do mediocre work if you let them. People who respect you will push themselves to be better because they don't want to disappoint you. That's a lonely way to live. Yes, she said simply. It is. The admission hung in the air between them. The person who leaked the Vandermeer files, Ethan said carefully. Do you think they did it because they were afraid of you, or because they wanted to hurt you? Her expression hardened. Does it matter? I think it does. Fear makes people desperate. Hatred makes them deliberate. The first is a symptom. The second is a choice. Adriana stood abruptly. Finish the proposal. I'll review it in the morning before we send it to Jessica. She walked away before he could respond, leaving him alone with his spreadsheets and the lingering scent of her perfume. Friday afternoon, they sent the proposal to Jessica Warren. By Monday, they had the account. The celebration at the office was muted. Adriana didn't believe in celebrations until money was actually in the bank, but there was a palpable sense of relief. Blake Media Group had survived losing its biggest client. The agency would live to fight another day. Ethan was packing up for the evening when Patricia appeared at his desk. Ms. Blake would like to see you before you leave. He found Adriana in her office, 2 glasses and a bottle of wine on her desk. "Close the door," she said. He did. She poured wine into both glasses, handed him one. "To not getting destroyed by corporate espionage." They drank. The wine was good. Of course it was. Adriana wouldn't drink anything less. "You did well this week," she said. "The pitch, the proposal, handling the pressure. I'm taking you off probation. It's been less than a week. I know, but probation was always arbitrary. I needed to know if you'd buckle under pressure or rise to it. You rose." She took another sip of wine. "The athletic wear account is yours to lead. You'll report to me weekly on progress, but day-to-day decisions are yours. Don't make me regret this." "I won't." "We'll see." She set down her glass. "Your daughter, how is she handling your schedule?" The question caught him off guard. "She's managing. Mrs. Chen has been helping more. Lily's been asking when I'll be home for dinner again." "When's the last time you were?" He tried to remember. 2 weeks, maybe? Before the Vandermeer crisis. Adriana's expression shifted, something that looked almost like regret. "Leave at 5 tomorrow. Have dinner with your daughter. The work will still be here the next day." "Are you sure?" "I don't say things I don't mean, Mr. Cole. Your daughter needs her father present, not just in the same apartment while you work on a laptop. Go home. Be there." He studied her face, trying to understand this sudden concern for his personal life. "Do you have family in New York?" "No." "Parents? Siblings?" "Not anymore." She refilled her glass. "My parents are dead. I have a sister I haven't spoken to in 6 years. Family is complicated." "Yeah, it is." "Your ex-wife," Adriana said, "Rebecca. Does she ever ask to see Lily more often?" "Sometimes, usually when it's inconvenient for her career." "Why?" "Just curious about the logistics of shared custody. It seems difficult." "It is. But Lily's worth it." He paused. "Do you want kids?" The question clearly surprised her. "I never really considered it. Building this company took everything I had. There wasn't room for anything else." "Is there room now?" She looked at him directly, and something in her eyes made his pulse quicken. "I don't know. I'm not sure I know how to make room for anything that isn't work." "You could learn." "Could I?" There was something raw in her voice. "I've spent so many years being this version of myself, the demanding boss, the ice queen, the woman who doesn't need anyone. I'm not sure there's anything else left underneath." "I don't believe that." "Why not?" "Because you asked about Lily. Because you noticed I was exhausted and told me to work less. Because you're sitting here drinking wine with an employee when you could be—" He stopped, realizing he was overstepping. "Could be what?" "Could be anywhere else. With friends or family or someone you actually like instead of just employing." Adriana smiled, but it was sad. "What makes you think I don't like you, Mr. Cole?" The words hit him like electricity. He set down his wine glass, suddenly aware of how alone they were, how personal this conversation had become. "I should go," he said. "Lily will be waiting." "Of course." Adriana's mask slipped back into place. "See you Monday." He left before he could say something stupid, heart pounding harder than made any sense. That weekend, he took Lily to the park, helped her with homework, made pancakes for breakfast. But his mind kept drifting back to that conversation in Adriana's office. The vulnerability in her voice. The way she'd looked at him when she said she didn't know if there was anything left underneath her armor. On Monday, everything changed again. He arrived at the office to find police in the lobby. Not security, actual NYPD detectives talking to Patricia in hushed voices. The entire staff was clustered in the main conference room, looking nervous. James saw Ethan and pulled him aside. "There's been an arrest. The person who leaked Vandermeer." "Who?" "David. He confessed this morning." David, one of the senior creatives, had been with the company for 3 years. Quiet, competent, seemingly loyal. "Why would he do it?" James's expression was grim. "He was having an affair with someone at Vandermeer's main competitor. Pillow talk turned into corporate espionage. They paid him $50,000 for the strategy documents." Ethan felt sick. "How did they figure it out?" "IT tracked down the USB drive. It had David's fingerprints. When they confronted him, he broke down immediately. Apparently, he's been trying to quit for months but couldn't afford to with his divorce lawyer fees. The money was supposed to be his escape plan. Where's Adriana? Her office. She's been in there since the detectives left. I'd give her space if I were you. But Ethan couldn't give her space. He took the elevator to the top floor. Adriana was standing at her window, arms wrapped around herself, staring out at the city. She didn't turn when he entered. I told you the truth comes out eventually, he said softly. You were right. Your daughter was right. Doesn't make it feel any better. You trusted him. I trusted all of them, and one of them sold me out for $50,000 and an affair with a competitor's marketing director. Her voice was flat, drained. Do you know what the worst part is? It wasn't even about me. I was just collateral damage in someone else's mess. Ethan moved closer. You couldn't have known. I should have. I should have seen the signs, the stress, the divorce, the financial pressure. I should have paid attention instead of just demanding results. You're not responsible for his choices, aren't I? I built a culture where people are too afraid to ask for help, where showing weakness means getting cut. Maybe if I'd been less of a tyrant, he would have come to me instead of selling us out. Or maybe he's just someone who made a terrible decision under pressure. Not everything is your fault, Adriana. She turned at the use of her first name. He'd never called her that before. Her eyes were red-rimmed, and he realized with a shock that she'd been crying. I'm very tired, she said quietly. I'm tired of being the villain in everyone's story. I'm tired of building walls to keep people out. I'm tired of going home to an empty apartment and wondering if this is all there is. Something broke in Ethan's chest. He crossed the room and did something insane. He pulled her into a hug. For a second, she went rigid, shocked. Then she collapsed against him, her careful composure crumbling, and he felt her shoulders shake with silent tears. They stood there for a long time, her face pressed against his shoulder, his arms around her while she fell apart. He didn't say anything. There was nothing to say. He just held her while she let herself break, maybe for the first time in years. When she finally pulled back, her makeup was ruined and her perfect hair was mussed, and she'd never looked more human. I'm sorry, she whispered. Don't be. This is wildly inappropriate. I'm your boss. I shouldn't... Yeah, probably not. He smiled slightly. But I'm glad you did. She looked up at him, and something shifted in the air between them. A recognition, maybe. An acknowledgement of something that had been building for weeks. Ethan, she said, and the sound of his name in her voice made his heart stutter. This is a very bad idea. I know. I'm your boss. You work for me. There are rules about this. I know that too. And I'm terrible at relationships. I'm demanding and critical, and I don't know how to let people in. I've noticed. She almost smiled. Then why are you still standing here? Because underneath all that armor, you're someone worth knowing, and I think you know it too. The words hung between them, heavy with possibility and danger. Adriana stepped back, rebuilding her walls with visible effort. Go home, Mr. Cole. We'll discuss this when I'm less compromised. Okay? And Ethan? She wiped at her eyes, smudging mascara. Thank you for not running when I fell apart. Any time. He left before he could do something even more stupid, like kiss her in her office where anyone could see. But as the elevator descended, he knew everything had changed between them. The question was whether either of them was brave enough to figure out what that meant. The next 2 weeks existed in a strange limbo. Adriana acted as if the moment in her office had never happened. All business, all sharp edges, the Ice Queen back in full force. But there were cracks now that Ethan couldn't unsee. The way her voice softened fractionally when she said his name, how she'd catch herself watching him during meetings, then look away quickly when he met her eyes. The coffee that appeared on his desk some mornings, exactly how he took it, with no explanation. He didn't push. Whatever was happening between them felt fragile, like something that would shatter if examined too closely. The athletic wear account consumed most of his time. Jessica Warren was brilliant but demanding, wanting to be involved in every decision while also trusting them to lead. Ethan found himself working late most nights, building out store concepts with Sarah and Marcus, reviewing vendor proposals, managing timelines that seemed designed to be impossible. Adriana was always there, not hovering, not micromanaging, just present. She'd appear in the creative pod around 8 p.m. with questions that pushed his thinking. She'd review his work and offer feedback that was still critical, but felt more like collaboration than criticism. And sometimes, late at night when the office was empty, except for the two of them, they'd talk. Not about work, about everything else. He learned that she'd grown up in Connecticut, old money family that had lost everything when she was 17. Her father's investment firm had collapsed in scandal. Her mother had died 2 years later from complications of alcoholism. And Adriana had put herself through college working 3 jobs while watching her family name become synonymous with fraud. "That's why you changed it," Ethan said one night. They were in the conference room reviewing presentation boards for Jessica's upcoming store launch. "Blake isn't your real name." "No, it was my mother's maiden name, less baggage." She adjusted a mock-up, precise movements that didn't quite hide the tension in her shoulders. "My father's name opens doors, but they're all doors to rooms where people want to ask questions I don't want to answer." "What happened to him?" "Prison? Federal? He's been out for 8 years now, living in Florida with his 3rd wife. We don't speak." "I'm sorry." "Don't be. He made his choices." She looked at him directly. "People always make choices, Ethan. The question is whether they can live with the consequences." The use of his first name still sent electricity through him. She did it more often now when they were alone, like she was testing how it felt. "Is that why you're so hard on people?" he asked. "Because you think if you're not perfect, you'll end up like him?" "Maybe. Or maybe I'm just terrified of being ordinary." She smiled, but it was brittle. "My entire life has been about proving I'm not my father's daughter, that I can build something real, something that matters, without cutting corners or hurting people. But some days I wonder if I've just become a different kind of terrible." "You're not terrible." "You cried in the bathroom after I threw that coffee mug at you," Marcus told me. Ethan felt his face heat. "I didn't cry. I just needed a minute." "It's okay if you did. I've made plenty of people cry. It's not something I'm proud of." She gathered the presentation boards, organizing them with meticulous care. "I told myself I was building character, pushing people to excellence. But mostly, I was just pushing them away." "Why are you telling me this?" She paused, hands stilling on the materials. "Because you asked, and because for some reason I can't quite explain, I want you to know." The honesty in her voice made his chest tight. "Adriana, don't." She cut him off gently. "Whatever you're about to say, don't. Not here, not now. We have a client presentation in 6 hours and I need to focus." He nodded, understanding that this was as close as she could get to acknowledging what was happening between them. They worked until 3 a.m., perfecting every detail. When they finally finished, Adriana called them a car service rather than making him take the subway. "You need sleep," she said when he tried to protest. "Bill it to the company." In the car heading to Queens, exhausted and wired at the same time, Ethan's phone buzzed. A text from Adriana. "Thank you for listening. A.B." He stared at it for a long moment before responding. "Anytime." The presentation to Jessica went perfectly. The store concepts were bold, community-focused, exactly what she'd wanted without knowing how to articulate it. By the end of the meeting, she was already talking about rolling out the strategy to all 15 locations nationwide. "You two make a good team," Jessica said, shaking both their hands. "The vision is clearly Adriana's, but the heart is all Ethan. It's a powerful combination." In the car back to the office, Adriana was quiet. "What's wrong?" Ethan asked. "That went great." "It did. I'm just thinking about what Jessica said, about us being a team. We are a team, a good one." "Yes, we are." She looked out the window at Manhattan sliding past. "Which is exactly why this is so complicated." "This?" "You know what I mean. Don't make me say it." Ethan's pulse kicked up. "Maybe you should say it anyway." "I can't. You work for me. There are rules, Ethan. HR policies, power dynamics, a dozen reasons why this would be a disaster." "What if I didn't work for you?" She turned to look at him. "Are you offering to quit? Would you want me to?" "No, you're too valuable, and not just because of your work." The admission seemed to cost her something. "I like having you here. I like talking to you. I like that you're not afraid of me even when you probably should be." "I am afraid of you sometimes." "Good, you should be. I'm a mess, Ethan." I'm controlling and demanding, and I don't know how to be in a relationship without trying to manage it like a business deal. Ask anyone I've ever dated. Actually, don't, because they all hate me. How many relationships are we talking about? 3 serious ones. The first ended when she realized I cared more about my career than her. The second ended when he got tired of scheduling intimacy around client meetings. The third ended when I fired him. Ethan blinked. You fired someone you were dating. In my defense, he was stealing from the company. The relationship was already over. I just expedited the professional separation. She rubbed her temples. See? Disaster. I turn everything I touch into a negotiation or a problem to be solved. That's not what you need. What do I need? Someone warm, someone uncomplicated, someone who can be present for your daughter without treating her like a quarterly review metric. You've never even met Lily. Exactly, because meeting her would make this real, and real is terrifying. The car pulled up to the office. Adriana gathered her bag, reaching for the door handle, but Ethan caught her wrist. What if I want real? He said quietly. What if I'm tired of keeping everything at a distance? She looked at his hand on her wrist, then up at his face. For a moment, he thought she might lean in, might close the space between them and make this impossible situation even more impossible. Instead, she pulled away gently. I have a board meeting at 2. We'll discuss the next phase of the Warren account tomorrow. She left before he could respond, leaving him alone in the car with the knowledge that they were both running from the same thing. That night, Lily asked him why he seemed sad. I'm not sad, sweetheart, just tired. You look like you did when Mommy left, all confused and sad at the same time. Kids saw too much. I'm just trying to figure something out. About work? Sort of. About a person at work. Lily considered this while coloring a picture of what appeared to be a dragon. Is it your boss, the mean lady? She's not mean, she's just complicated. Mrs. Chen says complicated is just another word for scared. Ethan smiled despite himself. Mrs. Chen is too smart for her own good. So is your boss scared? Yeah, I think she is. Of what? How did you explain adult fears to a 6-year-old? Of getting hurt. Of letting people see who she really is and having them leave. That's silly. If someone's nice on the inside, why would people leave? Because sometimes we hide the nice parts so well that people can't find them. We build walls to keep from getting hurt, but then we end up lonely instead. Lily looked up from her coloring. Are you lonely, Daddy? The question hit him harder than expected. Sometimes, yeah. Me too. I miss having a mommy and a daddy in the same house. He pulled her into a hug, throat tight. I know, baby. I'm sorry. It's okay. Mrs. Chen says families come in all different shapes. Ours is just you and me, and that's okay too. When did you get so wise? I was born this way. She said it with such complete confidence that he had to laugh. Later, after she was asleep, his phone buzzed. I'm sorry for today, for running. I'm not good at this. AB. He typed and deleted 3 different responses before settling on the truth. Neither am I. But maybe we could be bad at it together. The response came almost immediately. That's a terrible idea. Then, a minute later, meet me tomorrow, 7 p.m., the coffee shop on 5th near the office, just to talk. Ethan stared at the message, heart hammering. This was crossing a line. Not just blurring it, but deliberately stepping over it with full knowledge of what it meant. I'll be there. He barely slept. The next day crawled by with excruciating slowness. He saw Adriana twice. Once in a morning meeting where she was all business, and once in the hallway where she met his eyes for half a second before looking away. At 6:30, he told Sarah he was leaving early and headed to the coffee shop. Adriana was already there, tucked into a corner booth, hands wrapped around a cup like she was trying to absorb its warmth. She'd changed out of her usual suit into jeans and a sweater, the most casual he'd ever seen her. Without the armor of her work clothes, she looked younger, more vulnerable. He slid into the seat across from her. Hi. Hi. She didn't quite meet his eyes. I wasn't sure you'd come. I said I would. People say a lot of things. A waitress appeared and Ethan ordered coffee. When they were alone again, the silence stretched uncomfortable. I don't know how to do this, Adriana said finally. I don't know how to be a person outside of work. Everything in my life is structured, managed, controlled, and then you showed up and suddenly I can't control anything. Is that a bad thing? I don't know. It feels dangerous. She finally looked at him. You have a daughter, a life. You don't need the mess of getting involved with your boss who has more baggage than an airport carousel. Stop telling me what I need. Someone has to. You're clearly not thinking straight. Maybe I'm thinking clearly for the first time in months. He leaned forward. I know this is complicated. I know all the reasons it's a terrible idea, but I also know that I haven't felt this alive since before my marriage fell apart. That talking to you at 3 a.m. about nothing feels more real than anything else in my life. That when you let your guard down, even for a second, I see someone extraordinary. Adriana's eyes were bright like she might cry. I'm going to hurt you. I don't mean to, but I will. I'm demanding and controlling, and I'll probably treat our relationship like a project I need to optimize. Probably. And I don't know anything about kids. I'll be terrible with Lily. I'll say the wrong things and schedule quality time like a meeting and mess everything up. Maybe. Or maybe you'll surprise yourself. This could destroy your career if it goes wrong. Office relationships that end badly always do. I know. So why are you willing to risk it? Ethan reached across the table, taking her hand. She tensed but didn't pull away. Because I think you're worth the risk. And I think maybe, under all that fear, you think I might be too. A tear escaped down her cheek. She wiped it away impatiently. I hate crying. It's inefficient. He laughed, and after a second, so did she. This is insane, she said. Completely. We should have rules, boundaries, keep it separate from work. Okay? I mean it, Ethan. At the office, I'm still your boss. I'll still push you and criticize your work and expect excellence. I wouldn't want it any other way. And we go slow. No rushing into anything. No meeting Lily until we're sure this is real. That's reasonable? And if it doesn't work, we end it cleanly. No drama. No making things awkward for the team. Agreed. She studied their joined hands. I'm terrified. Me too. But you're still here. Yeah, I am. She squeezed his hand and the gesture felt like a promise. Okay, let's be terrified together. They stayed in that coffee shop for 3 hours, talking about everything except work. He told her about Lily's obsession with dragons and dinosaurs, about his mother who died when he was 20, about his dreams of writing a novel that would probably never happen. She told him about her sister in California, who blamed her for not stopping their father, about the apartment she'd bought but never decorated because it felt like admitting she'd be alone forever, about her secret love of terrible reality TV that she watched at 2 a.m. when she couldn't sleep. When they finally left, the sky was dark, and the city lights felt romantic instead of harsh. I should get home, Ethan said. Mrs. Chen is watching Lily. Of course. Adriana hesitated, then kissed his cheek. Quick, chaste, but it sent heat through him. Thank you for tonight. We didn't even do anything. We did everything. We were honest. That's rarer than you think. He watched her hail a cab, waited until it pulled away, then headed to the subway with a lightness in his chest he hadn't felt in years. The next weeks were careful, tentative. At work, nothing changed visibly. Adriana was still demanding, still pushed him relentlessly. But now he understood it differently. Saw the way she was trying to make him better because she believed he could be, not because she thought he was failing. Outside work, they carved out moments. Coffee before the office opened. Late dinners after Lily was asleep and Mrs. Chen had gone home. A Saturday afternoon walking through the Met, where Adriana talked about art history with an enthusiasm that transformed her face. She asked about Lily constantly, but never pushed to meet her. I want to, she admitted one night over Thai takeout in her still mostly empty apartment. But what if she hates me? She's 6. She doesn't hate anyone except vegetables. What if I say something wrong? Kids need warmth and spontaneity, and I'm neither of those things. You're more of both than you think. You just hide it. Still, maybe we should wait. He didn't push. But 3 weeks into whatever they were doing, Lily made the decision for him. He'd picked her up from school and was walking her to Mrs. Chen's when she asked, Daddy, do you have a girlfriend? He nearly tripped over a crack in the sidewalk. What? A girlfriend, Tommy's dad has one. She comes to his soccer games and stuff. Why are you asking? Because you keep smiling at your phone and you smell different, like flowers. That would be Adriana's perfume from when they'd kissed goodbye that morning. Her name is Adriana. She's my girlfriend. Is she nice? She's very nice. To me, anyway. She can be kind of scary to other people. Is she scary to you? Sometimes, in a good way. Lily processed this. Can I meet her? You want to? Yeah, I want to see if she's pretty. He texted Adriana that night after Lily was asleep. She knows about you. She wants to meet you. The response took 5 minutes. I'm not ready. You don't have to be ready. You just have to show up. Another long pause. What if I mess this up? Then you mess it up and we figure it out. That's how relationships work. I don't know how to be around children. Just be yourself. The real version, not the boss version. What if the real version isn't good enough? Ethan called her. She picked up on the first ring. You're good enough, he said without preamble. You're more than good enough, and Lily is going to love you because she's smart and kind, and she sees people for who they really are. But if you're not ready, that's okay too. We can wait. How long? As long as you need. He heard her breathing on the other end, could picture her pacing her apartment, trying to logic her way through an emotional decision. Saturday, she said finally. Lunch, somewhere casual where a 6-year-old won't be bored out of her mind. Are you sure? No, but I'm doing it anyway. Saturday came too fast and not fast enough. Ethan told Lily they were meeting his friend for lunch, watching her eyes light up with curiosity and mischief. Is she your girlfriend? Yes. Are you nervous? A little bit, yeah. Don't be. I'm very charming. She said it with complete sincerity, and he had to hide his smile. They met at a diner in the West Village. Booths with red vinyl seats, milkshakes on the menu, the kind of place where a kid could be a kid. Adriana was already there, sitting ramrod straight in a booth, looking like she was about to take a deposition. She stood when she saw them, and Ethan watched her carefully controlled expression flicker through several emotions before settling on something that might have been a smile. Hi, she said. Hi, he replied, then gestured to Lily. This is Lily. Lily, this is Adriana. Lily stared up at Adriana with unabashed curiosity. You're really pretty, like a movie star. Adriana blinked, clearly not having expected that. Thank you. You're also very pretty. I know. Daddy says I look like my mom, but I think I look like me. She climbed into the booth. Do you like dragons? I haven't thought much about dragons. That's sad. Dragons are the best. They breathe fire and fly, and some of them hoard treasure. I'm going to be a dragon expert when I grow up. Ethan slid in next to Lily, watching Adriana across the table. She looked terrified, which was weirdly endearing. A dragon expert sounds like a good career, Adriana said carefully. I think so too. What do you do? I run a company that helps other companies tell stories about their products. That sounds boring. Lily, Ethan warned. It's okay, Adriana said, and there was the faintest hint of genuine amusement in her voice. It is pretty boring sometimes, but sometimes we get to work with interesting clients, like a hotel that wants to feel like Brooklyn, or a clothing company that wants people to feel like they're part of a community. Why do people need help feeling things? Can't they just feel them? That's actually a very smart question. Adriana leaned forward slightly. People can feel things on their own, but sometimes they need help understanding what they're feeling, or why. That's what stories do. They help us make sense of things. Lily considered this while coloring on the paper placement the waitress had brought. Daddy writes stories. He's really good at it. He is. He's one of the best writers I know. He used to write for newspapers, but now he works for you. Do you pay him a lot? Lily. Ethan felt his face heat, but Adriana laughed. Actually laughed, warm and real. I pay him what he's worth, which is quite a bit. Your dad is very talented. I know. He helps me with my homework and makes really good pancakes and reads me stories every night, even when he's tired. She looked up from her coloring. Do you read stories? Not as much as I should. You should read more. Stories are important. They help you understand people. You sound like your father. That's because he's smart. Are you smart? I like to think so. Good. Daddy needs someone smart. His last girlfriend was dumb. Ethan wanted to sink through the floor. Lily, that's not... She asked him what state New York was in. New York is both a state and a city. Everyone knows that. Adriana was trying very hard not to smile. That does seem like basic geography. The waitress arrived and took their orders. Grilled cheese for Lily, burger for Ethan, salad for Adriana, until Lily frowned and said salad wasn't real food, at which point Adriana changed her order to a burger too. Over lunch, something shifted. Adriana stopped looking like she was taking an exam and started actually engaging with Lily. She asked about school, about Lily's friends, about what books she liked to read. She listened with genuine attention, asked follow-up questions, remembered details. When Lily spilled her milkshake all over the table, Adriana didn't flinch, just grabbed napkins and helped clean up, even though she got vanilla shake on her expensive sweater. It's okay, she told Lily, who looked mortified. Accidents happen. That's why we have napkins. You're not mad? Why would I be mad? You didn't do it on purpose. She dabbed at her sweater. Besides, this needed to be dry cleaned anyway. Lily beamed at her. After lunch, they walked to a nearby park. Lily ran ahead to the playground while Ethan and Adriana followed at a slower pace. That wasn't so terrible, was it? Ethan asked. She's incredible, smart, funny, confident without being obnoxious. You're doing an amazing job with her. I'm terrified all the time that I'm screwing her up. You're not. She's happy. That's what matters. Adriana watched Lily climb the jungle gym with fearless energy. I was wrong about not being ready. I'm glad we did this. Yeah? Yeah? She glanced at him. She's kind of the best kid I've ever met. But don't tell her that. Her ego is already healthy enough. He laughed. Your secret's safe. They sat on a bench while Lily played, close enough that their shoulders touched. Adriana tensed for a moment, then relaxed into it. She looks like you, Adriana said quietly. The way she tilts her head when she's thinking, the way she gestures when she talks. Rebecca always said she had my stubbornness. That's not stubbornness, that's determination. There's a difference. Lily ran over, breathless and excited. Can Adriana come to dinner at our house? Please? Ethan looked at Adriana, giving her an out if she needed it. She smiled. Like that. Yay! Lily grabbed her hand. You're going to love our apartment. It's small, but Daddy says that's cozy, not cramped. And I can show you my dragon collection. Adriana let herself be pulled along, glancing back at Ethan with an expression that was half panic, half joy. That night, in Ethan's cramped queen's apartment that suddenly felt too small for 3 people, Adriana sat on the floor with Lily and learned about every dragon in her extensive collection. She asked questions, made appropriate amazed noises, and even contributed ideas for a dragon story Lily was writing. Over spaghetti that Ethan made while listening to them talk in the next room, he felt something settle in his chest, a rightness that had been missing for a long time. After dinner, Adriana helped with dishes despite his protests. She's wonderful, Adriana said quietly, scrubbing a plate. Thank you for letting me meet her. Thank you for being so good with her. I know that wasn't easy. It was easier than I thought. She makes it easy. She set down the plate, turning to face him. I want to do this again. I want to be part of this, if you'll let me. He kissed her, soft and quick, because Lily was in the next room, but it felt like a promise. We'd like that, both of us. Over the next month, they found a rhythm. Adriana came to dinner once a week, sometimes twice. She learned Lily's routine, her likes and dislikes, the specific way she needed her sandwiches cut. She wasn't naturally warm or demonstrative, but she showed care in other ways, remembering details, helping with homework, bringing books about dragons and dinosaurs. Lily adored her, which Adriana clearly didn't know how to process. She drew a picture of us, Adriana told Ethan one night. They were in her apartment, finally starting to look lived in with books on the shelves and photos on the walls. All 3 of us. She labeled me Daddy's girlfriend who is learning about dragons. That's accurate. She put hearts around it, Ethan. Lots of hearts. She likes you. I don't understand why. I'm not fun or playful or any of the things kids usually like.
You're honest with her. You treat her like a person, not a child. You listen when she talks.
Those things matter more than being fun. Adriana looked at the picture, which she'd clearly saved. I'm falling in love with both of you. That's terrifying. His heart stopped. Say that again. I'm falling in love with you, with this life we're building, with the idea that maybe I don't have to be alone forever. She met his eyes. Is that okay? He crossed the room and pulled her into his arms. That's more than okay. They stood there for a long time, holding each other in the quiet apartment, and for the first time in years, Adriana let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, she deserved this. But happiness in stories is never simple, and theirs was about to get a lot more complicated. The crisis came on a Tuesday morning, 3 months into their relationship. Ethan arrived at the office to find chaos. The creative team was clustered around James's desk, voices tense. Michelle looked like she'd been crying. What's wrong? Ethan asked. Sarah turned to him, face pale. Jessica Warren is pulling the account. All 15 store rollouts, the entire contract. She says we breached the agreement. His stomach dropped. What? How? Someone leaked preliminary designs to one of her competitors. They launched a store concept that's almost identical to ours 3 days ago. Jessica thinks we sold her strategy. Not again. Not this again. Where's Adriana? Her office. She's on the phone with legal. He took the stairs 2 at a time, Patricia calling after him that Adriana didn't want to be disturbed. He didn't care. She was standing at her window when he entered, phone pressed to her ear, every line of her body rigid with fury. I don't care what it costs. Find out who did this and bury them. She ended the call, spun around, and saw Ethan. Not now. Jessica thinks we leaked her designs. I'm aware. I just spent 30 minutes listening to her accuse me of corporate espionage and professional sabotage. Her voice was ice, the warm woman from last night completely gone. This is going to destroy us, Ethan. Warren was our anchor account. Without it, we lose credibility, we lose revenue, and we probably lose half our staff. We'll figure it out. We did it before with Vandermeer. This is different. This is twice in 6 months. No one will trust us after this. We're finished. The defeat in her voice was awful to hear. He moved toward her, but she held up a hand. Don't. I need to think, and I can't think when you're close. Let me help. You can't help. No one can help. This is... She stopped, something crossing her face. The designs. You were the lead on that account. You had access to everything. The implication hit him like a slap. You think I leaked them? I think someone did. And statistically, the person with the most access is the most likely culprit. Are you serious right now? After everything, you think I'd sabotage you? I think people do terrible things when they're desperate. Your ex-wife is still writing hit pieces about the industry. Maybe she convinced you. Stop. His voice was sharp enough to make her flinch. I didn't leak anything. I would never hurt you like that. You said the same thing about Vandermeer, and I was innocent then too. Why is your first instinct always to assume the worst? Because experience has taught me that people are generally disappointing. She was yelling now, composure shattered. Everyone I've ever trusted has eventually used that trust against me. Why should you be different? Because I love you, you stubborn, terrified, impossible woman. The words came out raw, louder than he'd intended. I love you, and Lily loves you, and we're trying to build something real. But you keep waiting for me to betray you, looking for evidence that I'm going to destroy you, and I'm tired of defending myself against crimes I didn't commit. The office had gone silent around them. Ethan realized too late that Adriana's door was still open, and every employee in the vicinity had just heard him confess his love to their boss while she accused him of corporate espionage. Perfect. Just perfect. Adriana's face had gone white. Get out! Adriana, get out of my office. You're suspended pending investigation. Patricia will escort you out. You're making the same mistake you made before, pushing away the people who care about you because you're scared. I said get out! The pain in her eyes was as sharp as her voice, but he was too angry to care. Fine. But when you figure out I'm innocent, again, don't expect me to come running back. He stormed out, past Patricia, who looked sympathetic, past the creative team, who wouldn't meet his eyes, past James, who actually smirked. In the elevator, reality crashed over him. He'd just been suspended for the second time. His relationship with Adriana had imploded in front of the entire office, and somewhere, someone was systematically destroying everything they'd built. His phone rang. Mrs. Chen. Ethan, I'm sorry to bother you, but Lily's school called. She's running a fever. They need you to pick her up. Because of course this day would get worse. I'll be there in 20 minutes. He picked up his sick daughter, took her home, and spent the afternoon holding her while she dozed fitfully, and he tried not to fall apart. When she woke up around dinner time, she looked at him with feverish eyes and asked, "Why are you sad, Daddy? Just a bad day at work, sweetheart? Did you and Adriana have a fight?" "Yeah, we did."
Are you breaking up? The question was so direct it hurt. I don't know, baby. Maybe. Tears welled in Lily's eyes. But I like her. She was teaching me about constellations. I know you like her. I like her too. Then why are you fighting? Because she's scared. And when people are scared, they sometimes push away the things they love to keep from getting hurt. That's stupid. Despite everything, he smiled. Yeah, it kind of is. You should tell her you didn't do the bad thing, whatever the bad thing is. I did tell her. She doesn't believe me. Then you have to prove it, like a detective. Lily's fever-bright logic was surprisingly sound. Find out who really did it and show her. That's a good idea, but I don't know how. You're smart, Daddy. You'll figure it out. He held his daughter and wondered when 6-year-olds had gotten so wise. That night, after Lily finally fell asleep, he opened his laptop.
If Adriana wasn't going to trust him, fine. He'd prove his innocence himself. He started with the Warren account files, tracking who'd accessed what and when. The design files had been downloaded 3 times, once by him during the initial development, once by Sarah when she'd been building the mock-ups, and once by someone using James's login credentials. James. Ethan pulled up more logs, cross-referencing access times with office schedules. James had been working late the night the files were downloaded. James had also been working late the night the Vandermeer files were stolen. It couldn't be coincidence. He dug deeper, searching through email threads and shared documents, found a pattern of James accessing confidential files right before major leaks or client issues, found inconsistencies in his project timelines that suggested he was spending time on things that weren't company business. By 2 a.m., Ethan had built a circumstantial case that James had been sabotaging the company for months, but he didn't have proof. Nothing definitive that would hold up in court or convince Adriana. He needed more. He called the one person who might be willing to help. "This better be important," Patricia answered, voice thick with sleep. "It's Ethan. I think James has been behind the leaks, both of them, but I need access to his computer to prove it." Silence. Then, "If I help you with this and you're wrong, I'll be fired too." "I know. I wouldn't ask if I wasn't sure." Another pause. "Meet me at the office at 6 a.m. before anyone else gets there. And Ethan, you break her heart again, and I'll break your legs. That woman has been through enough." "I'm not trying to break her heart. I'm trying to save it. We'll see." He didn't sleep. At 5:30 a.m., he left Lily with Mrs. Chen and headed to Manhattan. Patricia was waiting in the lobby, looking grim. "You have 1 hour. After that, security changes shifts and we'll have witnesses." She let him into James's office. His computer was password protected, but Patricia had access codes, perks of being Adriana's assistant for 5 years. Ethan went through files methodically, emails, documents, browsing history. And there, buried in a folder labeled Personal, he found it. Correspondence with Warren's competitor, with Vandermeer's competitor, with a journalist writing about industry practices. James had been selling information to anyone who would pay, funding a lifestyle his salary couldn't support, building relationships with competitors who might hire him away. He'd been sabotaging Blake Media Group for months, maybe years, and framing other people for his crimes. Ethan copied everything to a USB drive, documentation so thorough, even Adriana couldn't deny it. "Got it?" Patricia asked from the doorway. "Yeah, I got it." Oh, good. Now let's get out of here before... Before what? They both turned. Adriana was standing in the hallway, clearly having just arrived, coffee in hand and confusion on her face. "What's going on?" Ethan held up the USB drive. James has been leaking confidential information to competitors for months. I have proof. Emails, file transfers, payment records. He framed me for both leaks. Adriana's expression shifted from confusion to shock to cold fury in seconds. Show me. In her office, he walked her through everything he'd found. The emails arranging sales of confidential information. The payments to James's personal account. The pattern of access that aligned perfectly with every major crisis the company had faced. When he finished, Adriana was silent for a long time. "I'm sorry," she said finally, voice barely above a whisper. "I'm sorry I doubted you. Again, I'm sorry I accused you. I'm sorry I keep assuming the worst when you've given me every reason to trust you." Adriana, no, let me finish. She looked at him directly, eyes bright with unshed tears. "I've been waiting for you to leave since the day we met, expecting you to realize I'm too damaged, too difficult, too much work, so I kept testing you, pushing you away, trying to hurt you before you could hurt me. And you stayed anyway, even when I didn't deserve it. You deserve it. You've always deserved it. I don't know how to be loved without suspicion. I don't know how to trust without evidence. I don't know how to believe that someone might actually choose me, not in spite of my flaws, but because of the whole person I am." Her voice broke. "But I want to learn. If you'll still have me after I've been such a complete disaster." Ethan crossed the room and pulled her into his arms. She held on to him like he was the only thing keeping her from falling apart. "I'm sorry," she whispered against his chest. "I'm so sorry." "I know, it's okay. It's not okay. I hurt you. I hurt us. Then we'll fix it, together." She pulled back to look at him. "How do you not hate me?" "Because I understand why you did it, because I know what it cost you, and because I love you too much to let one fight destroy what we're building. Even after I suspended you twice for things you didn't do? Even after that, though maybe we could work on your investigation process." She laughed wetly. "Yeah, maybe we could." They stood there holding each other while dawn broke over Manhattan, and for the first time Adriana let herself believe that maybe someone could love her, not despite her walls, but enough to help her tear them down. But first, they had a saboteur to deal with. James was arrested that afternoon, led out in handcuffs while the entire office watched in stunned silence. Jessica Warren called within an hour of the news breaking, apologizing profusely and reinstating the contract. That night, Ethan brought Lily to Adriana's apartment. She'd been asking about the fight, worried they'd broken up. Adriana opened the door and immediately knelt down to Lily's level. "I owe you an apology," she said seriously. "I hurt your dad's feelings and made him sad. That wasn't fair to him, and it wasn't fair to you. I'm sorry." Lily studied her with those two wise eyes. "Are you going to do it again?" "I'm going to try very hard not to, but sometimes I make mistakes when I'm scared." "What are you scared of?" "Losing people I love, like you and your dad." Lily thought about this, then hugged her. "You won't lose us. We're staying." Adriana held on to the small girl, and over Lily's head her eyes met Ethan's. There were tears on her face, but she was smiling. They were going to be okay. It wouldn't be easy, and there would be more fights and more fears to overcome, but they were going to be okay. The weeks after James's arrest should have been easier. The threat was gone, the company was stable, and Adriana had finally let her walls down. But real life, Ethan was learning, didn't care about narrative convenience. The first crack appeared on a Thursday night in late February. Ethan had promised Lily he'd be home for dinner. Actually home, not working from the couch home. And he'd meant it. But Jessica Warren had called at 4:30 with concerns about the Brooklyn store launch. And by the time he looked up from the conference call, it was 7:15. He texted Mrs. Chen an apology, grabbed his coat, and nearly ran into Adriana in the hallway. "Leaving?" She checked her watch. "It's barely 7. I promised Lily I'd be home for dinner. I'm already late." Something flickered across her face. "The Warren presentation isn't finished." "I know. I'll work on it after she goes to bed. We need it by tomorrow morning. That's 8 hours from now." "I'm aware. I'll get it done." He could hear the edge in his own voice, felt the familiar tension building. "Ethan, this is important. Jessica is nervous about the launch timeline, and if we don't," I said, "I'll handle it." "When? Between reading bedtime stories and making breakfast?" The criticism stung because it was exactly what he was planning to do. "What do you want me to say?"
That I'll just not see my daughter tonight? That she can eat dinner alone again while I stay here proving I'm dedicated enough? That's not what I'm asking, isn't it? Because it feels like every time I try to leave at a reasonable hour, there's suddenly an emergency that needs my attention right now. Adriana's expression went cold. If you can't handle the workload, don't. Don't finish that sentence. He was so tired. Tired of juggling, tired of feeling like he was failing at everything. I can handle the workload. I've been handling it, but I also have a kid who needs her father, and I'm not going to apologize for that. I'm not asking you to apologize. I'm asking you to finish what you started. I will finish it, just not in your timeline. My timeline is the client's timeline. Then maybe you should have given me more than 4 hours to complete it. They stood there in the hallway, the argument spiraling into territory that had nothing to do with presentations and everything to do with the fact that balancing a relationship, a demanding job, and single parenthood was turning out to be exponentially harder than any of them had anticipated. Go, Adriana said finally, voice clipped. Be with your daughter. I'll finish the presentation. You don't have to do that. Clearly I do, since you can't be in 2 places at once. Adriana, just go, Ethan, before you're even later. He left, the elevator ride down feeling like defeat. When he got home, Lily was already in her pajamas picking at leftover pasta that Mrs. Chen had made. You're late, she said without looking up. I know, baby. I'm sorry. You said you'd be home for dinner. I know. Work ran late. Work always runs late. She pushed her pasta around with her fork. You said it would be different after the bad man got arrested. You said things would get better. The accusation in her small voice broke something in him. Things are better. The company is doing well. I don't care about the company. I care about you being here. She finally looked at him, and her eyes were too old, too sad for 6. Mrs. Chen is nice, but she's not you. And Adriana is nice too, but she's always working, and you're always working, and I'm always waiting. He knelt down next to her chair. You're right. I've been working too much. I'll do better. You always say that. I mean it this time. You meant it last time too. She stood up, leaving her dinner half-eaten. I'm tired. I'm going to bed. Lily, wait. I don't want to talk anymore. You'll just make more promises you can't keep. She went to her room and closed the door with devastating gentleness. Not slamming it, that would have been easier to handle. The quiet click of the latch felt like judgment. Ethan sat at their small kitchen table and put his head in his hands. Mrs. Chen touched his shoulder. She'll forgive you, the older woman said softly. Children always do. But she's not wrong, Ethan. You've been stretched too thin. I don't know what else to do. I need this job. We need the money, the insurance, the stability. Yes, but she needs her father more than she needs stability. What good is a stable life if you're never in it? After Mrs. Chen left, Ethan opened his laptop and stared at the Warren presentation. Got through maybe 3 slides before his phone rang. Adriana. Hey, he answered, exhaustion bleeding through. How's Lily? Mad at me. Disappointed. Feeling neglected. Pick one. Silence on the other end. Then, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have pushed you about the presentation. It could have waited. Could it have? Or are you just saying that now? Both, maybe. I don't know anymore. She sounded as tired as he felt. I've spent so long making work the priority that I don't know how to do anything else. And when I see you trying to leave, trying to put your daughter first, part of me respects it and part of me resents it. Why would you resent it? Because you have something worth leaving for. Someone who needs you and loves you unconditionally, and I'm jealous of that, which makes me a terrible person. You're not terrible. You're just not used to competing for attention. Is that what this is? A competition? I don't know what this is anymore. He closed his laptop. I love you, I love being with you, but I also love my daughter, and lately it feels like I can't do both well. I'm either a bad father or a bad boyfriend or a bad employee, and I'm so tired of failing at everything. You're not failing. Tell that to Lily. She just told me I make promises I can't keep. Adriana was quiet for a long moment. What if I came over after she's asleep? We could work on the presentation together, get it done faster. You don't have to do that. I want to, and maybe we need to talk, really talk, not just fight about deadlines. Okay? Yeah, come over.
She arrived an hour later with her laptop and takeout containers from the Thai place they both liked. They worked in silence at first, the presentation coming together with the efficiency that came from knowing each other's work styles. Around 11, Adriana closed her laptop and looked at him. "I'm bad at this," she said. "At presentations? You're literally famous for presentations. At relationships. At being someone's partner instead of someone's boss. At understanding that love means compromise, not just fitting someone into my existing structure. I'm not great at it either. I thought I'd figured out how to balance everything, but I clearly haven't. Maybe that's the problem. We're both trying to balance instead of actually changing anything." She picked at her noodles. "I've been thinking about what you said. About work always running late, about there always being an emergency. And you're right. I manufacture urgency because it's how I've always operated. Everything is always critical, always a crisis, because that kept me sharp. But it's also how I kept people at a distance. If everything is always urgent, I never have to stop and actually be present. Never have to risk intimacy or vulnerability because there's always something more important that needs my attention." Ethan set down his fork. "Are you saying you've been using work to avoid us?" "Not consciously, but maybe. I don't know." She looked frustrated with herself. "I'm trying to be better. I'm trying to let you in, to be part of Lily's life, to build something real. But my instincts keep pulling me back to what's familiar, which is work and control and keeping everyone at arm's length. So what do we do?" "I don't know, but I think we need to make some actual changes instead of just promising to try harder." She pulled out her phone, opened her calendar. "What if we had boundaries, real ones? Like 3 nights a week, I'm at your place for dinner. Not working, not on my phone, just present. And 2 nights, you work late without guilt because you know the other nights are protected." "That sounds good in theory. But what about when clients need us?" "Then we figure it out. We communicate, we adjust, we don't just default to work winning every time." She met his eyes. "I'm not saying it'll be perfect, but it has to be better than what we're doing now, which is slowly burning out and resenting each other." He reached across the table and took her hand. "I don't resent you. Not yet. But you will if I keep making you choose between me and Lily. And I don't want that. I want to be part of your life, not a complication in it." "You're not a complication, aren't I? Be honest." He thought about it, really thought. "Sometimes, yeah. When you push me to work late or make me feel guilty for putting Lily first, yeah, it feels complicated. But most of the time you make everything better, easier, less lonely. Most of the time isn't good enough. Not for you, and definitely not for Lily. So we do better. We set boundaries, we stick to them, we actually mean it when we say family comes first." "Can you do that? Really? Because your work ethic is almost as bad as mine." He laughed despite himself. "Yeah, it probably is. We're both disasters. At least we're disasters together." They finished the presentation by midnight. Before Adriana left, she looked toward Lily's closed bedroom door. "Is she really okay? What she said about you making promises you can't keep." "No, she's not okay. But she will be if I actually follow through this time." He walked Adriana to the door. "Thank you for coming over, for helping, for being honest about the work thing. Thank you for not giving up on me when I make it hard." She kissed him goodbye, and he watched her get in a cab before going to check on Lily. His daughter was asleep, dragon-stuffed animals arranged around her like guardians. He sat on the edge of her bed, smoothing hair from her forehead. "I'll do better," he whispered. "I promise. And this time, I mean it." The next morning, he made pancakes before school. Lily was still quiet, still wary, but she ate breakfast with him and let him walk her to the bus stop. "I talked to Adriana last night," he said as they waited. "We're making some changes. I'm going to be home for dinner at least 3 nights a week. Real dinner, where I'm actually there, not working. You promise?" "I promise. And if something comes up that makes me late, I'll call you before dinner, not after. No more showing up an hour late and expecting you to be okay with it." She considered this. "What about Adriana? Does she promise too?" "Yeah, she does." "Okay." Lily spotted her bus approaching. "I'm still mad at you, but I'll stop being mad if you actually do what you said." "That's fair." She hugged him before getting on the bus, and he took that as progress. At the office, he found Adriana already in a meeting with Patricia, going through her calendar. "I'm blocking out Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday evenings," she was telling her assistant. Nothing gets scheduled during those times unless it's an actual emergency. Define actual emergency, Patricia said, stylus poised over her tablet. Client is literally on fire. Building is collapsing. Someone died. Otherwise, it can wait until morning. Patricia looked delighted. I never thought I'd see the day. Should I alert the media? You should alert our clients that response times during evening hours will be slower. Set expectations now so they're not surprised later. After Patricia left, Adriana turned to Ethan. I meant what I said last night. I'm making changes. Real ones. I can see that, thank you. Don't thank me yet. I'll probably be terrible at it, but I'm going to try. She was terrible at it, at least at first. The following Tuesday, their first official family dinner night, Adriana arrived at Ethan's apartment at 6:30 as planned, but immediately checked her phone 4 times in the first 10 minutes. Sorry, she said, catching herself. Client email. Can it wait? Ethan asked, trying to keep his tone neutral.
Probably. Yes. It can wait. She put her phone face down on the counter. How was your day, Lily? Good. We learned about fractions. They're like dragons that get cut into pieces. Adriana blinked. That's one way to think about fractions. My teacher said it was creative. Do you know about fractions? I do. They're useful for calculating budgets and timelines. That sounds boring. I like the dragon way better.
But over dinner, spaghetti again, because it was Lily's favorite and Ethan was not an adventurous cook, Adriana's phone buzzed 6 times. Each time she visibly tensed, then forced herself to ignore it. After dinner, while Lily was showing Adriana her latest dragon drawings, Ethan saw her glance at her phone and grimace. What's wrong? He asked quietly. Jessica Warren. The Brooklyn launch is having permitting issues. The contractor needs an answer tonight about redesigning the outdoor space. Do you need to handle it? She looked at Lily, who was explaining in elaborate detail the difference between European and Chinese dragon mythology, then back at her phone. The conflict on her face was obvious. I'll call her after Lily goes to bed, Adriana decided. It's not actually an emergency, just feels like one. Are you sure? No, but I'm doing it anyway. After Lily's bedtime, Adriana did call Jessica, handling the permitting issue in 15 minutes while Ethan cleaned up the kitchen. When she hung up, she looked exhausted. That wasn't so bad, she said, but she didn't sound convinced. It'll get easier. Will it? Or will I just get better at pretending I'm not constantly anxious about everything I'm not controlling? Maybe both, but at least you're trying. She stayed that night, the first time she'd slept over on a weeknight. In the morning, Lily found her making coffee in the kitchen and seemed surprised but pleased. Are you staying for breakfast? Lily asked. If that's okay with you. Yeah, Daddy makes good pancakes. I've heard. I haven't actually tried them yet. Lily looked scandalized. Daddy, you never made Adriana pancakes? I offered, Ethan protested. She always says she doesn't eat breakfast. Everyone eats breakfast. It's the most important meal of the day. Lily turned to Adriana. You have to try his pancakes. They're the best. So Adriana stayed for pancakes, and Ethan watched her sitting at their small kitchen table in yesterday's work clothes, eating breakfast with his daughter, and felt something settle in his chest that had been restless for months. This could work. It was messy and imperfect, and they were all figuring it out as they went. But it could work. The second family dinner night went smoother. Adriana only checked her phone twice, and one of those times was to show Lily a photo of a constellation she'd mentioned wanting to see. The third week, Adriana brought groceries and insisted on cooking, which resulted in slightly burned chicken and overcooked vegetables that Lily politely tried to eat before Ethan ordered pizza. I'm not good at this, Adriana said, staring at the disaster of a meal. You tried. That counts. Does it? Because I'm pretty sure I just wasted an hour and $30 on inedible food. You made an effort. You were here. You were present. You tried something new. That absolutely counts. He kissed her temple. Besides, Lily thought it was funny. Look at her. Lily was indeed giggling, picking at a particularly charred piece of chicken. It's like dragon food, all crispy and burned. I think that's an insult, Adriana said, but she was smiling. It's not. Dragons like their food cooked extra. You made dragon chicken. Well, when you put it that way, I'm a culinary genius. But not everything was family dinners and learning to cook. There were still hard moments, still conflicts that didn't resolve neatly. In March, Adriana missed a dinner night because of a client emergency that was actually an emergency, a PR crisis that needed immediate handling. She called Ethan at 5:30, voice tight with stress. "I can't make it tonight. There's a situation with the cosmetics client, and if I don't handle it right now, we're going to lose the account." "Okay, handle it." "I'm sorry, I know it's Tuesday." "It's fine. This is actually an emergency, right? Not just manufactured urgency?" "Their CEO just got accused of harassment. It's about to go public. This is very real and very much an emergency." "Then do what you need to do. We'll see you Thursday." "Are you sure you're not mad?" "I'm disappointed, but I'm not mad. There's a difference. Go save your client." He hung up and turned to Lily, who was setting the table for 3 and would now need to remove one place setting. "Adriana can't make it tonight. Work emergency." Lily's face fell. "She promised." "I know, but sometimes emergencies happen. Real ones, not fake ones." "How do I know the difference?" It was a fair question. When it's real, she sounds stressed instead of just busy. And when it's real, she calls before dinner instead of just not showing up. "Is she going to stop coming to dinner?" "No, she'll be here Thursday. This is just one night." "Okay." But Lily looked uncertain, and Ethan couldn't blame her. Thursday, Adriana arrived with flowers for Lily and obvious guilt. "I'm sorry about Tuesday," she told Lily immediately. "I wanted to be here. Daddy said it was a real emergency." "It was, but I still wish I could have been in 2 places at once." "That's impossible. You can only be in one place." Lily accepted the flowers. Daisies, her favorite. "Did you fix the problem?" "Mostly. The CEO is going to make a public apology and step down temporarily. It's not perfect, but it's better than it was." "That's good. Do you want to see my science project?" Just like that, she was forgiven. Ethan wished he could move past disappointments that quickly. Later, after Lily was asleep, Adriana sat with Ethan on the couch, her head on his shoulder. "I hate missing dinner," she said. "I hate disappointing her. It's going to happen sometimes. We knew that going in. It still feels terrible, and I worry that she'll start to expect me to let her down the way she expects it from you sometimes." The words stung because they were true. "I'm working on that. We both are." "Are we doing enough? Is any of this enough?" "I don't know. But it's more than we were doing before, and that has to count for something." She tilted her head to look at him. "Do you ever regret this? Getting involved with me, bringing me into Lily's life, making everything more complicated?" "No, never." He meant it. "Do you regret it?" "Sometimes I regret how hard I've made it. But no, I don't regret being here. Even when I screw up, even when I miss dinner or say the wrong thing or burn chicken so badly it's inedible, I don't regret it. This is the first time in my life I've felt like I'm part of something instead of just managing it from the outside." "You are part of something. You're part of this family, messy and imperfect as it is." She kissed him, soft and grateful. "I love you. I don't say it enough, but I do." "I know. I love you too." They sat there in comfortable silence, and Ethan thought maybe this was what relationships actually looked like. Not perfect, not without conflict, but worth fighting for anyway. The real test came in April. Rebecca called out of nowhere, asking to see Lily for her spring break week. Not asking, really. Informing. She was coming to New York for work and wanted Lily to stay with her at her hotel. "I haven't seen her since Christmas," Rebecca said, like this was Ethan's fault somehow. "I'm her mother. I have rights. You also have responsibilities, which you mostly ignore except when it's convenient for you. Don't start with me, Ethan. I'm not asking for your permission. I'm telling you I'm exercising my custody time." They argued for 20 minutes before he agreed, mostly because fighting with Rebecca was exhausting and ultimately pointless. She'd been a mediocre mother when they were married and an absent one after the divorce, but she was still Lily's mother. He told Adriana that night over dinner at her apartment, which finally looked like someone actually lived in it. "She just calls and expects Lily to drop everything?" That's Rebecca. Everything is about her schedule, her needs, her career. Lily is an accessory she remembers she has occasionally. How does Lily feel about it? "I haven't told her yet. I wanted to talk to you first." Adriana looked surprised. "Why?" "Because you're part of this too. And because this means I won't see Lily for a week, which means I'll probably end up working late every night, which affects you.
I can handle you working late.
Can you? Because we just spent 2 months establishing boundaries, and now I'm telling you I'm going to blow right through them. That's different. This is about Lily seeing her mother, not about you choosing work over us. She came to sit next to him on the couch. How are you feeling about it? Angry? Jealous? Worried that Rebecca will say something that makes Lily feel like I'm the reason her mother isn't around more? Guilty that I'm relieved to have a week where I can just focus on work without feeling like I'm failing anyone? That's a lot of feelings. Yeah. Welcome to co-parenting with an ex who lives 3,000 miles away and calls twice a year. Is there anything I can do? He thought about it. Come to dinner anyway. The nights we'd normally be with Lily. It'll be weird and quiet without her, but I don't want to just default to working until midnight because I don't have a reason to leave the office. Okay, I can do that. When Ethan told Lily about Rebecca's visit, she had complicated feelings that she expressed with the brutal honesty of a 6-year-old. I want to see Mommy, but I also don't want to because she always says she'll do things and then she doesn't. I know, baby. Last time she was supposed to take me to Disneyland, and we just stayed at her apartment and she worked the whole time. This time will be different. She's coming here specifically to see you. But what if she doesn't? What if she's just saying that and then she'll be busy? Then you call me and I'll come get you. I promise. Can Adriana come too? If Mommy is busy? It was the first time Lily had specifically asked for Adriana when she was upset, and Ethan saw what it meant. His daughter was starting to trust her, to see her as someone stable and present. Yeah, Adriana can come too. The week Rebecca had Lily was strange. Ethan worked late every night, but Adriana still came over for dinner, bringing takeout or cooking simple meals they ate together in his quiet apartment. It's weird without her, Adriana said on the third night, looking at Lily's empty chair. Yeah. Do you think she's okay? I don't know. Rebecca hasn't called with any disasters, so probably. His phone rang right then, displaying Rebecca's number. He answered immediately. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Lily wanted to talk to you. There was shuffling, then his daughter's voice. Daddy? Hey, sweetheart, how's it going? It's okay. We went to the Museum of Natural History today. Mommy said it was educational. Did you like it? Yeah, they have dinosaurs, but Mommy got a work call in the middle and we had to leave early. Of course they did. I'm sorry, baby. It's okay. She said we can go back tomorrow, but I don't think we will. She has meetings. Ethan's jaw clenched. Do you want to come home? No, I want to stay with Mommy. I just miss you and Adriana. Is she there? He handed the phone to Adriana, who looked surprised but took it. Hi, Lily. How are the dinosaurs? Ethan couldn't hear his daughter's response, but he watched Adriana's face soften as she listened. That sounds really cool. I'd love to see pictures. Yes, I'm taking care of your dad. We had Thai food tonight. No, he's not working too much. Well, maybe a little, but I'm making sure he eats dinner. Okay, sweetheart, I'll see you when you get back. Have fun with your mom. She handed the phone back to Ethan. She okay? He asked Lily. Yeah, I just wanted to hear your voices. Can I call tomorrow? Anytime you want. I love you. Love you too, Daddy. After he hung up, Adriana was quiet. What's wrong? He asked. Nothing. I'm just thinking about how she called for both of us. Not just you, us. Is that okay? It's more than okay. It's terrifying and wonderful at the same time. She looked at him. I'm falling in love with that kid. I didn't plan to. I don't know if I'm any good at it, but I am. She's falling in love with you too. How do you know? Because she asked for you. Because she wanted to hear your voice when she was feeling unsure. Because she trusts you to take care of me when she can't be here to do it herself. Adriana's eyes got bright. She's the best kid in the world. Yeah, she is. And her mother is an idiot for not being present. Rebecca has her reasons. They're selfish and short-sighted, but they're her reasons. You're too generous. If I had a kid like Lily, I wouldn't miss a single day. You wouldn't. But you also didn't have her at 23, fresh out of college, convinced that motherhood was going to ruin your dreams. Rebecca never wanted to be a parent. She just didn't figure that out until after Lily was born. That's not Lily's fault. No, it's not. But it's not really Rebecca's either. She's doing the best she can, which isn't enough, but it's what we have. Adriana moved closer, tucking herself against his side. You're a better person than I am. I'm mostly just angry at her for hurting Lily. I'm angry too, but anger doesn't change anything, so I try to focus on making sure Lily knows she's loved and wanted, even if her mother doesn't know how to show it. You're a good father, Ethan. I don't know if I tell you that enough, but you are. He kissed the top of her head. Thank you. They sat there in the quiet apartment, and Ethan thought about how much had changed in 8 months. How this woman who'd terrified him, who'd thrown coffee mugs and shredded his work and made him want to quit, was now the person he wanted next to him when his daughter was gone and his apartment felt too empty. When Lily came home 3 days later, she was quiet and clingy. Rebecca had apparently spent most of the week working, taking calls during meals, bringing Lily to her business meetings when she couldn't find childcare. I tried to be good, Lily told Ethan that first night back. I was quiet during her meetings, and I didn't ask for stuff, but she still seemed annoyed that I was there. That's not about you, sweetheart. That's about her not knowing how to balance work and being a mom. Like you? The comparison hit hard. Am I like that? Do I make you feel like you're annoying when I'm working? Sometimes, but you're getting better, and you have Adriana now to remind you about dinner. So his 6-year-old had noticed that Adriana was the reason he was home more. Great. I'm sorry if I've made you feel that way. I'm trying to do better. I know, and you are better. But Mommy doesn't try. She just works and acts like I'm supposed to understand that her job is more important than me. He pulled her into a tight hug. You're the most important thing in the world to me, more important than any job, any client, any amount of money. Don't ever forget that. I won't. Can I call Adriana? She's probably still at the office. Can I text her? I want to show her the dinosaur pictures. He handed over his phone and watched Lily carefully type out a message with her small fingers. The response came almost immediately. Adriana sending back dinosaur emojis and asking which one was Lily's favorite. His daughter was building a relationship with his girlfriend independent of him, and it was beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. Because if this didn't work out, if he and Adriana couldn't figure out how to make this sustainable, Lily would lose someone else. And he didn't know if she could handle that. But watching her smile at Adriana's texts, seeing how she relaxed in a way she hadn't since getting back from Rebecca's, Ethan made a decision. This had to work. They'd make it work. Because Lily deserved a family that showed up. And so did Adriana. And so honestly, did he. The changes didn't happen overnight. They happened in small moments over the next 6 months. Adriana learning to silence her phone during dinner, Ethan leaving the office at 6 without guilt, Lily starting to believe that the adults in her life would actually keep their promises. There were still hard days. A week in June when 3 clients needed urgent attention and Adriana missed 2 family dinners in a row, coming back to find Lily withdrawn and Ethan frustrated. A night in July when Ethan got so caught up in a pitch that he forgot about Lily's dance recital until Adriana texted him a photo of his daughter on stage, searching the audience for him. But they kept trying. Adriana started blocking entire weekends on her calendar, declaring them off limits to work. Ethan hired an assistant to handle some of his workload, pushing back against his instinct to do everything himself. And slowly, incrementally, the balance shifted. By September, almost a year after that first coffee mug incident, something had fundamentally changed. Not just in their schedules, but in how they thought about what mattered. Adriana promoted Michelle to partner, sharing leadership of the company for the first time in her career. It terrified her, letting go of control, trusting someone else with her life's work. But it also freed her to actually have a life outside the office. Ethan took Lily to school most mornings now, and Adriana picked her up twice a week, the two of them stopping for hot chocolate and talking about constellations or dragons or whatever had captured Lily's imagination that day. On a Saturday in late October, exactly 1 year after that kiss in Adriana's office, when everything had exploded and then reformed into something real, Ethan asked Lily for permission. I want to ask Adriana to marry me. What do you think? Lily looked up from her drawing, completely unsurprised. Finally, I thought you'd never ask. He laughed. You knew? Daddy, everyone knows. You look at her like she's magic. She kind of is. So when are you asking her? I was thinking next weekend. We could go to the park, the 3 of us, and I could ask her there. That's boring. Lily said it with the authority of someone who'd clearly been thinking about this.
You should do it at the office.
Where you met. Where she threw the coffee at you. She threw it near me, not at me. Whatever, that's where your story started. That's where it should get to the next part. His daughter was 7 now, and somehow wiser than he'd ever been at twice her age. So the following Monday, Ethan waited until the office cleared out, until it was just him and Adriana reviewing plans for a new campaign. Patricia had helped him, making sure they'd be alone, making sure the moment would be private. I've been thinking, he said, closing his laptop, about the campaign, because I think the messaging needs not about the campaign, about us. She looked up, caught something in his voice. Okay. A year ago, you threw a coffee mug at my head and told me my work was garbage. I said near your head, and your work was good, just not finished. You terrified me, made me want to quit, made me wonder if I'd made a huge mistake taking this job. Is this going somewhere positive? Because so far it's not great. He smiled, reached into his pocket. But you also challenged me, pushed me, made me better at everything, my work, my parenting, my life. You let me see the person underneath all that armor, and she's incredible, difficult and demanding and still kind of scary, but incredible. Adriana's eyes widened as he dropped to one knee. I don't want easy. I don't want simple. I want you exactly as you are. Burnt chicken and manufactured urgencies and all. I want family dinners and late-night work sessions and teaching Lily about constellations together. I want to build a life with you, not just a relationship squeezed into the margins of our schedules. He pulled out the ring, simple, elegant, nothing ostentatious because that wasn't her style. Adriana Blake, will you marry me? Will you stay? She was crying, which he'd only seen her do a handful of times. That's not fair. Using my own words against me. Is that a yes? Of course it's a yes, you impossible man. She pulled him up and kissed him hard, the ring box pressed between them. Yes. 1,000 times, yes. He slipped the ring on her finger, and she stared at it like she couldn't quite believe it was real. Lily knew, didn't she? She told me to propose here, said this is where our story started. She's too smart for her own good. She gets that from you. Adriana laughed through her tears. I'm going to be someone's stepmother. That's terrifying. You're already someone's stepmother. This just makes it official. I'm going to mess it up sometimes. I'm going to prioritize work when I shouldn't. I'm going to say the wrong thing. You're going to be human. We all are. But we'll figure it out together. She kissed him again, softer this time. I love you. I love both of you. And I promise to keep trying, to keep showing up, even when it's hard. That's all anyone can promise. They went to pick up Lily together, who took one look at Adriana's hand and squealed so loud the other parent stared. You said yes! I knew you'd say yes! How did you know? Adriana asked, kneeling down. Because you love us, and we love you. That's what families do. They stay together. Adriana pulled Lily into a hug, and Ethan watched the two most important people in his life holding each other and felt something settle that had been searching for a long time. They got married 6 months later in a small ceremony, just close friends, Patricia crying in the front row, Lily as flower girl taking her job with utmost seriousness. Nothing fancy, nothing perfect, just real. At the reception, Lily gave a speech that she'd written herself. When Daddy first told me about Adriana, he said she was scary. And she kind of is, but she's also the person who taught me about stars, and who comes to my school plays even when she has important meetings, and who makes really bad chicken, but keeps trying anyway. She's family now, our family. And I'm really happy she's staying. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. Later, dancing with Adriana while Lily spun in circles with Mrs. Chen, Ethan thought about how far they'd come. From that first brutal presentation to this moment, from fear and suspicion to trust and love. What are you thinking? Adriana asked. That if you hadn't thrown that coffee mug, we might never have gotten here. I should throw things more often. Please don't. Our lives are complicated enough. She laughed, and it was the sound of someone who'd finally let themselves be happy. They built a life together after that, messy and imperfect and full of the kind of ordinary chaos that meant everything. Missed dinners and made-up ones, arguments about work-life balance that they still hadn't perfectly solved, Lily's school events and Adriana's board meetings and Ethan's deadlines all crashing into each other in ways that required constant negotiation. But they showed up. Every day, in ways big and small, they showed up for each other. And on difficult days when the balance felt impossible and the compromises felt too hard, Adriana would remember a scared, exhausted single father standing in her office refusing to accept mediocrity, from himself or from her. And Ethan would remember a lonely woman behind walls of her own making, learning to let someone in. They'd both been disasters in their own ways. They still were sometimes. But they were disasters together, and that made all the difference.